In this day and age, any facilitation or interaction with the First Realm, the Servile Society, requires the revealing of some sort of personally identifiable information. Whether renting a place, buying a house, or buying cigarettes, one is faced with the burden of taxes, regulatory burdens, and in the case of the latter, a doxing of themselves to any random corporate employee that asks. Though, it's awfully hard or nearly impossible to get by without any sort of interaction. In Vonu terminology, Rayo describes this as a one-directional isolationism, wherein the self-liberator has access to their open but not free trading centers, but denies them access to his home base or bases. More expansively, a solution is found in Second Realm, book on strategy with the proxy merchant. The proxy merchant is a specialized individual who helps to facilitate said interactions with the coercers and haters of privacy, usually at a fee or premium. A proxy merchant may help with cryptocurrency trading, i.e. fiat to Monero, Monero to Bitcoin, or whatever, giving a self-liberator a private, more trusted solution versus using a third-party exchange. They might be in real estate and own apartment complexes, renting home bases out to self-liberators in Monero, off the books, and via a pseudonym. This real estate mogul might operate mail forwarding and residency services. Perhaps, this proxy merchant is also in contact with Thane Riddle's insurrectionary agorists, and they somehow got into possession of a pallet of non-KYC cigarettes. Now, they are able to pass on the benefits to those in the Second Realm, without paying the ridiculous extortion fees on such products. 20+ years back, every American committed at least 3 felonies a day. Today, it's surely far higher. The options for assisting freedom pioneers becomes ever expansive as each day passes by. Support the expansion of the Second Realm, the parallel, but still, circular economy, and keep our hard-earned money away from the baby bombers and coercers. Become a proxy merchant today. But this role isn't necessarily for everyone. It requires someone with a mind towards privacy, someone who exemplifies security culture principles, a self-liberator who thrives off exploiting loopholes and finding the glitches in this coercive matrix. If this sounds like you and you'd like to make a bit of coin, digital or otherwise, become a proxy merchant today. There's no website. Just start doing it. Tell the PAZNIA network about it. And profit.
Hey guys, Scott here for Liberty Under Attack Publications. Looking for a Liberty-focused publisher? Liberty Under Attack publishes books and strategy guides for individuals looking to increase their personal freedom. They assist authors through the entire publishing process, proofreading, editing, cover designs, paperback and Kindle formatting, and full audiobook narration and post-production. Tell them Scott sent you and get 20% off a full service deal. To get some one-of-a-kind books or for more information, visit libertyunderattack.com.
Hiding things. Harming others. Stopping others from harming you. I'm Thane Riddle. This is Cloak and Dagger.
Yo baby, yo baby, yo baby. What's shaking? Ashwagandha Nation. Ugh. Got a real cloaked up show for you, so pull out your daggers. This is Thane Riddle punching in for another underpaid shift boss. You're listening to the PAZNIA Radio Network, the most spectacular treasure in history. We're live on Zap.stream, I guess. If you're a Bitcoin seller, you can zap us silly on Zap.stream or Noster, which is a gay way of saying send lightning Bitcoin. If you're underpaid but starting to get paid at least, don't tell them that. I'm supposed to be a charity case. Just kidding. I'm actually extremely wealthy billionaire. I'm actually Elon Musk. Because you're a libertarian, so that means you're a corporate apologist. You're gonna like me more if I'm rich. You'll want to give me more money if I'm rich. Because if I have a lot of money, that means I probably know what to do with it, which is actually true.
If you're a Monero Chad, send us Monero at xmarchat.com/PAZNIA radio. Tell them Thane sent you to give me free content to read on the show. Desperately running out of content. Seriously, like start sending me ideas for new down to earth tips and building the second realm and stuff like that. I might, but hey, on the bright side, I might have to start doing prank calling, which I've put off since last year. Do go to PAZNIA.com/SimpleXRadio. Get your ass into the PAZNIA Radio Network chat. Leave messages, free content there. I'll read it on the show in like an hour and a half at least. When I will also be taking live call-ins at PAZNIA.com/call2 with my guest. Down to earth tip today. It's taking out the trash, disposing of things. You tell me, does that sound like something I talked about on the show before? Because I feel like I did. I feel like I've gone over this before, but I'm if so, I bet this is not the first time I accidentally did a down to earth tip twice. And that's it. Go fuck yourself. The guest in an hour is Max Hillebrand. I think he's a Vonuan and a privacy guy. He's known for working on the encrypted Nostr chat protocol, White Noise, as well as for being the former CEO of Wasabi Wallet. So that's a pretty cool guest to have. You should fucking leave me questions and comments for him, and call in an hour and a half at PAZNIA.com/call2. Here's some news. You can play the audio thing for the news if you want. I actually remembered somehow. I don't know if
This is Cloak and Dagger News, catching you up on this week's stories, propaganda, or psychological operations critical to your security and privacy.
In Second Realm news, listen up, boss. Our pal Doc Barber's Midfest is happening again. Yet another year soon on April 29th or, quote, maybe sooner. That's right. He doesn't even, it's not even a month away and he doesn't even know when it's happening, but it's no later than April 29th. So just start driving in that general direction. I don't even remember what state is that in Midfest. It's like Arkansas or something. I don't know. In digital news, I've tried to catch up on digital news because I was kind of behind for the last week or two. So I tried to catch up on digital news. I somehow still failed to catch up fully. But here's some old digital news anyway. That's probably like a week or two old. Delayed digital threat warning. Oh, Bit Refill was hacked. I don't know. They got some user details and stuff. Bit Refill sends some stupid. They sell some stupid, like, you know, cryptocurrency gift cards. I don't know, stuff like that. Oh, they also do the thing where I think they'll pay certain bills and things for you, not just gift cards. It's a neat idea, but you know, in case you don't know, you shouldn't give these people information that they don't need. Like, you should give them like some sort of temporary email address or like some sort of weird email address you made just for that, or something. You know, you should keep things apart in their own folds so that it's not such a big deal when something like that happens. I don't think it was a massive hack at Bit Refill, but it was enough to be a little bit bad. So yeah, I don't know. Watch out for that. Maybe they might tell you if your account was affected. I don't know. Here's another old digital threat warning. It's already too late. But here's a digital threat warning. Apparently, SamuraiWallet.com, the SamuraiWallet.com domain, got bought by scammers somehow. I mean, either the FBI sold it to scammers themselves, or they are running some like the dumbest scam in the world themselves. It's pretty weird. It's very it's pretty fucking retarded. I mean, if you look at the website, you'll see what I'm getting at. But whatever. That's it is what it is. And FBI seized that domain, samuraiwallet.com, and now it's owned by scammers somehow. Stuff that I should have gone over last week at least is FCMP++ is almost ready. I think it's getting towards the end, and I think it's being audited now, maybe. In case you don't know, FCMP++ is a big fucking upgrade to Monero that is good, and you want it and should be happy. It's going to be a big improvement on ring signatures. It's going to give Monero a bigger anonymity set than any privacy coin ever. So making Zcash look even dumber than it already does. And it'll have some other cool effects. In short, it's going to make Monero more private, secure, efficient, and adaptable over time. And it will allow for this other thing called Carrot, which is going to fix some bugs and attacks that rarely affect subaddresses. And it will also bring a new kind of forward secrecy to Monero, which will increase the post-quantum security of Monero. It's a funny thing where like it won't make Monero post-quantum exactly, but it will give you some post-quantum forward secrecy, so that future quantum cryptanalysis will not be so damaging to the past transactions, which is the most urgent thing to do something about. And this will also make Monero, not very shockingly, the first cryptocurrency to actually act like it gives a shit about something like that. Out of all the big ones, of course. Also, Carrot is going to give you 3 new kinds of view key as well. It's going to give you a view key that only generates addresses and nothing else. It can't even view anything really. So it's kind of weird to even call it a view key. That could be good for like a POS or something. Then there's one that can see incoming transactions, but not outgoing ones. And that'll be good for like a BTC Pay server. Actually, that'll be really good for BTC Pay server, especially because most folks are hosting BTC Pay server on someone else's hardware, like on a VPS or something. So it's nice, yeah, if it can't even see the outgoing transactions. And then of course there'll be the full view key, as usual, to see everything, which will be good for watching your own hardware wallets or cold wallets. P2 Pool is on TrueNAS, I heard. P2 Pool is like the coolest way to mine Monero because it's a decentralized mining pool. And if P2 Pool could take over Monero hash power, that would be great. That would be good for Monero. And TrueNAS is some sort of funny TrueNAS. It's some sort of funny little thing people use for self-hosting, whatever. And P2 Pool's on TrueNAS now. I heard about this thing called Bitcart. It's BITKART. It's an alternative to BTC Pay server. It might be lighter than BTC Pay server. They also do seem to have Bitcoin and Monero support. So it's worth taking a look at. Kind of cool. I don't really know much about it, but it seems worth looking into. I found out about this thing called Last Signal. LastSignal.app. It's a, what a dead man switch is. If you stop pressing a button, you stop cryptographically signing a message, whatever, then something happens because maybe you're dead or in prison or something, or you're in a coma. That's a dead man switch, right? And you could do anything with it. You could release the secrets of your enemies who may have assassinated you. You can release your cryptocurrency seed phrases to your family members or whatever. But anyway, Last Signal is this new. It might be shitty, I don't know, but it looks neat. It's and it's self-hosted, and I think it has end-to-end encryption. So yeah, that's cool. It's worth looking into. I would say be mindful about that. Like if you really want to set up something like that to do something important, watch out. Make sure it's actually going to work after you suddenly go missing. Because it's self-hosted, so you can put it anywhere, right? So like you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, right? So like you wouldn't want to host it on a server that is like, let's say, in the same location as your body, maybe, and have that be the only one. Maybe that could be one of them, but it shouldn't be the only one, because if the same thing that wiped you out wipes out the server, then that's not good. So just keep that in mind. Whatever. The folks are talking about this thing called stealth, and also this thing called am I exposed, am-I dot exposed. They're things that you can, I guess, use to audit your Bitcoin wallets and shit, Bitcoin addresses. As long as you can do it offline with your own full node, I guess that's all right. But best thing to do is just don't don't do a bunch of stuff with Bitcoin. Maybe that's the easiest way to get Bitcoin privacy. It's like, don't use it. Oh yeah, Cake Wallet got a big update and they got a new interface now. Whatever. Also, Monarujo got a big update, and they have like some merchant features in the interface, like when you go to receive a payment, it flips the screen upside down, so that it can be like on a counter, and then it'll go straight to showing you that it's confirmed, and then go to the next sub address, without having to navigate out the screen. So it makes it easier to, with Monarujo, turn any old smartphone or tablet into, a Monero POS machine that actually feels nicer to use. There's your old stale digital news from a week or two ago. And now here's some logistics news. The Marshall Islands declared some kind of state of emergency over the worldwide fuel shortage, because it turns out that island nations very far away are they really need imports, don't they? And this is a teachable moment for you. This is why smart preppers almost never run off to faraway islands. They almost never, you never hear, like, smart preppers don't run off to third world shithole countries that are like tourist traps, because there's beaches and I have location independent income and everything's cheaper there. There's not only are there a bunch of fucking poor people there who are like ready to eat you alive as soon as something goes wrong, but if it's an island, especially a faraway island, that's not for the most part a good idea, because they're very reliant on imports there, and it's not good. There's not good natural infrastructure there, so to speak. Non-Western aligned merchant ships have been flowing through the Strait of Hormuz this week. Since the last week, the Iranian state started its highwayman checkpoint system, which is far nicer than its blow shit up system, which of course is still in effect as well. However, one strait, two systems. If you don't get that joke, you're not missing much. India got their first oil tanker from Iran since the U.S. lifted oil sanctions for India. I think it's been pretty rough there. I think like the oil shortage has been much worse in India. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps to alleviate things there. The Indian people are already poor enough. All right. They have a hard time enough. Leave them alone. Australian state puts forth some fuel tax relief because of the fuel shortage, something you'd think they do like everywhere or something weeks ago. But also, on the other hand, the Australian state is maybe gearing up for socialist crackdowns on the fuel supply too. So, it's a give and take. Also, this was kind of funny timing. It's like the worst timing ever. One of the biggest deal oil pipelines in all of America broke down for a short while, not for very long, but it's just funny because it happened, at kind of a bad time, and it was leading up to the Easter weekend too, by the way, which is a time when folks like to drive a long way. Sometimes they visit family and stuff. It's funny. It's funny, okay? Also, Europe's running out of jet fuel. Fuel shortage seems to be shaping up to be pretty bad in Europe. Jet fuel and other petroleum products are going to be very low. I think air flight may come to an almost utter stop in Europe soon, which is convenient for creepy globalist think tanks who have wanted to put an end to civilian air flight for a long time. That's a funny thought, isn't it? Of course, it's not all about oil in logistics news. As you know, oil prices being higher will make prices of all kinds of goods go up. And oil is not the only thing being stopped on a big scale from leaving the Strait of Hormuz. There's other stuff that comes out of there. That's a big deal. What about chemical fertilizer supply? Lots of chemical fertilizer comes out of there. So there's going to be a shortage of that too. Prices of that will go up too. That will compound the oil shortage to make food prices in particular go up higher, maybe even more than other goods do. And that's not going away anytime soon at all. That's something that'll last for a long time into the future. If something's being grown on a farm right now, it's going to take quite a while for it to make it to you, like in a lot of cases. I'm afraid that our best economic times are already behind us, boss, and will be for many years to come, perhaps. I think it's going to get much worse before it gets any better than it is right now. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe it could get a little better than this and then get much worse. War news, of course. We got to talk about the umpteenth Gulf War, which is getting a little bit boring, but it could be more boring. The war has stayed quite hot this week. It heats up all the time. The Iranian state was hitting even harder than it was before. Lots of strikes in Israel ramping up. Some U.S. jarheads hitting Kuwait. I think some refinery hitting Kuwait. Same old crap. The Houthis have now softly and gently stepped into the war by firing one dinky little missile at Israel, which was, of course, intercepted. They seemingly waited for that U.S. ship that was in the Red Sea to leave so that the missile could at least make it to Israel, I guess. Good timing, whatever. The Houthis are some guys in, I don't know, Yemen or something. That, I don't know, a lot of people don't like, but they play a hell of a game of pool, I'll tell you that. In Saudi Arabia, the Iranian state took out some U.S. refueling and early warning aircraft, which is worse than it sounds. It's pretty bad for the U.S. for them to lose a bunch of early warning aircraft, not to mention refueling aircraft. It also makes the U.S. Air Force look kind of retarded, because it's like, what were they doing sitting there? Like they were sitting ducks, right? Like they were well within the known striking range of Iran. Not like, crazy close, I guess, but like they were well within it. And it's weird. I don't know, it's kind of weird. They send the B-52s out from England, okay, to give you an idea of, it's kind of weird that early warning aircraft were just sitting there. I don't know. Maybe that's why so many people are getting fired lately. I don't know. The U.S. hit some military targets in West Iran pretty hard. There were more merchant ships hit by the Iranian state, blah, blah. Who cares? Latest U.S. strikes do hint strongly even further at a ground war. Because the U.S., some U.S. strikes in Iran are late this week. They're on targets that, they wouldn't matter if it were only an air war, if it were only a missile war. Targets that would, make it harder for Iran to defend against a ground invasion. So it kind of, once again, hinting at an intention to come in on the ground. Of course, these strikes are not yet enough to ready the battlefield for a ground invasion. It would take a long while to get to the point where it wasn't like a crazy suicide mission to try a ground invasion. Of course, unless the U.S. wanted to do something that looks really dumb, like a crazy suicide mission, ground invasion. I don't know. Maybe they want to do that. Who knows? But if not, then it's going to take a lot more than that. So I wouldn't think that it's going to happen anytime soon. Speaking of which, Chechen fighters are the latest to say they'll back up the Iranian state if there is a ground invasion. So, yeah, the whole prospect of doing that, which was never easy to start with, keeps getting more and more complicated and keeps looking a little bit worse as time goes on. But that's not huge, like that's kind of symbolic, right? Like maybe it's not as symbolic as North Korea saying they'll back up Iraq. But still, Chechens, whatever. Who cares, right? But they're not the only ones. Now, the vibe, I kind of feel like the vibe is, it's a funny time for the U.S. to start a war nobody in the world likes right after they already pissed off everybody by randomly waging tariff wars on the whole fucking world. So it's like folks all around the world always hated the U.S. government, almost as much as Americans do. But in some ways, it may have reached a new low in some ways. The U.S. struck this big bridge project in Iran. It was going to be like the biggest bridge in the world or something. But it wasn't even finished. But what it means is taking down bridges is now very much on the menu. So you can look forward to Iran striking more bridges. They've done it before, actually. They in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, that's the Saudi state, sent some jarheads to go against some rebels in Bahrain, even though it's none of their goddamn business. And the Iranian state didn't like that. So they struck a bridge that was going into Bahrain. Then they can do it again. The bridge wasn't down, I think, for 100%. But anyway, before I was mostly talking about this one insurgent group in Iraq. But now it's like there are clearly lots of them, lots of insurgent groups in Iraq that are being stirred up. And they don't all see eye to eye with one another either. Iraq is reaching what feels like a bit of a boiling point. There may well be incoming civil war and uprising in Iraq between several factions, maybe. I don't know, in the near future. I think it'll likely be seen before the end of the U.S. real Iranian war. So you can look forward to an Iraqi civil war / uprising being a new little sidekick war to what's going on already. The other day, there was some big scourge of strikes in Dubai again, but it looks to me like the slice of the pie going to drone strikes is bigger and bigger all the time, boss. That's the main reason I bring that up. I feel like, in my first numbers, it was showing like an estimated like 60% of it was drones, but the drones were being intercepted way less. And now the UAE is doing this funny thing where they're trying to play coy and say things like, this is the number of strikes that were engaged by our defensive systems. And they're just like, what does that mean? Engaged. You mean you knew that it happened and you tried to shoot it down but failed to, or you after it already happened, you were like, damn, we should have intercepted that. That's what you mean by engaged your defenses. So yeah, I don't know. They're being kind of coy about that, but they said something like, I don't know, and what'd they say? Like 47 drones, 22 missile strikes. I think that was the exact numbers actually. So that's a growth. I think it's safe to say that's a growth in drone strikes, especially if the numbers are in any way being influenced by the interception rates, because drones are, I think, much less likely to be intercepted. So yeah, I don't know if that made any sense to you, but I'm just feeling the relevance of drones increase by the week. I'm seeing evidence that they're like more relevant all the time. Take notes. Be taking notes. The gallant U.S. sun gods who have been zooming through the skies, gracing the Middle East with their daring feats of sitting in an uncomfortable chair and pushing buttons to kill innocent folks. They're officially shitting their funny-looking zipper suits as of the last day or two, because the growing effectiveness of Iranian anti-air defense is bearing fruit. At least one or two U.S. fighter jets have gone down in the last day or two. At least two more were blowing emergency transmissions, freaking out for some reason. They won't say why, of course, probably because they were almost shot down. And at least one U.S. fighter pilot is likely missing. And even a couple search and rescue choppers caught a few scratches in their paint and got sent back to the grease monkeys for a bit. I say it's about time somebody made U.S. fighter pilots scared. Nobody likes those faggots. I'm sorry. What they do is super cool. And it's great that they, like, I don't know, don't need to wear glasses and shit like that. But, you know, nobody really likes them. Nobody likes them, you know, because what they do is easy and not risky enough. And they, you know, they're known for having a certain attitude about themselves that rubs people the wrong way. Now, it's kind of gay to talk too much about this, but it is pretty weird the U.S. military has fired so many generals and shit this week. I don't really have anything to say about that, but it's kind of weird. It's not, you don't hear about that every day. That, you know, during a big fucking war, there's like a handful of U.S. generals being fired or something. It's pretty weird. But who knows? Maybe it's just, maybe they're just filming a new comeback season of The Apprentice. It's called The Apprentice, Pentagon. And we'll all be watching it next year and we'll have a laugh about this. U.S. real would hit oil logistics, by the way. I want to give an aside to you about this. Why doesn't U.S. real hit oil logistics more? I don't know if this is a basic bitch insight, because I don't really watch the news, so I don't know if you're hearing this already. But by the way, I think the reason the U.S. real's not hitting many oil logistics in Iran is that they want it for themselves. The idea is that, you know, they want to take it over, and then they can have all the oil for themselves. You know, the classic ulterior motive for U.S. invasion of a Middle Eastern country. It's not the only thing that they want, but it's one of them. Now, they are happy, on the other hand, to threaten to hit more civilian infrastructure, though, which they are threatening to do, because fuck the civilians. But wait, actually, can you guys actually take down the Iranian state from within for us real quick? Yeah, we're gonna bomb your water desalination plants and your energy infrastructure, but can you just overthrow the government for us so that we can take over the country? Thanks. So yeah, war is heating up after all this time somehow. Now, the only good state is a dead state, as you know. But if two states will fight, then I don't mind for the smaller, more independent one to hold its own a little bit. And the Iranian state has fought fairly commendably as far as these things go, and shown their strength. They may well also stave off the ground invasion, if it is merely a conventional ground invasion. But the big question is, can the Iranian state withstand the ill will it has earned from the folks actually living in Iran over the last several decades? Can Mossad and friends wield that ill will to take over the Iranian state from within? Or did US real get a little too carried away and drop a few too many bombs on top of that opportunity before it really started? I don't know, dude. What do I look like? Some kind of CIA-backed investigative journalist or something? If I was, the news section would be much more well done. And there are a couple other little war news items, believe it or not, that don't fall under the umpteenth Gulf War, for fucking crying out loud. North Korea just sort of quietly developed a nuclear-capable ICBM that can hit the U.S. Ha ha ha. Finally, Team America World Police plot lines taking almost 25 years to become relevant. In Mali, what the fuck is Mali? You may ask. It's not some country in Western Africa. In Mali, there's this little insurgent group nobody's ever heard of before called FLA. And why am I bringing it up? Because they are, I guess, now the third-ish little ragtag insurgent group to use FPV attacks in war. Yes, that's right. It was like a few weeks ago, not even a month ago, that the first ever known FPV drone attack was done in the world, openly at least. And then it was like next week or two, the second group of insurgents in the world was doing it. Now they're doing it all the way over in fucking Mali. It has nothing to do with the Middle East. It has nothing to do with this war. They're doing it all the way over in Western Africa. They're just like, oh, that's cool. We need to get some of those toys. And they bought the FPV drones, and now they're blowing shit up with them. I think it's time. The verdict is in, boss. This is the latest fad for folks like you and I. So I think we might want to start playing around with these things. That's what I think. Get in on the ground floor of this one, boss. Especially in this year, electronic shortages coming down the pipeline like crazy. You're gonna want as many cheap, especially if you're gonna be blowing up the drones. if we can come up with drones that drop bombs or something like that, that would be nice, because just times of scarcity like we're about to run into, it could kind of suck to have to blow up all the drones. Something to think about. Now, when it comes to this weird alternative health shit, you may have heard of Brown's gas or molecular hydrogen, a wellness treatment used by professionals and weirdos of all stripes, mainstream and otherwise. All right. A bajillion studies, 1,500 papers, 170 diseases helped, treated, sometimes even cured by molecular hydrogen. Cancer, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, gastrointestinal disease, every organ and system in the body affected positively. In broad strokes, it's just a fucking electrolyzer that breaks water into hydrogen and oxygen that is negatively ionized. And you breathe that shit and you drink the water that it was bubbled through, and it magically cures you of shit and improves your overall health and wellness. Ugh. The PAZNIA Department of Health and Wellness has run R&D on this technology for about 4 years, and right now the top machine being recommended by the Department of Health and Wellness, not just because we make money off of it. I think it's the other way around. They liked it first, and then we tried to see if we could make money off of liking it. Top model being recommended by the PAZNIA Department of Health and Wellness is the Lord's Hydro Fix by Holy Hydrogen. And can you believe it? We have a coupon code for a product that isn't on our own store. Amazing. So now you can save a fat chunk of change on the top recommended machine and support Cloak and Dagger at the same time by heading on over to holyhydrogen.com and inputting coupon code VONU100 to get $100 off your Lord's Hydro Fix. Seriously, dude, these things cost a lot of money. So you're going to want to do your own research on molecular hydrogen to figure out, to discover that unlike 99% of the weird alternative health shit that you hear about, this thing is actually real, and it's actually very good and very helpful overall. This thing is, if anything is the real deal, it's this. This is one of the most evidence-backed weird things you can do for your health in like the world. So I think it's totally worth the money. And it's even more worth the money now because you pay $100 less and give it to us instead, which sounds good to me. But so when you discover for yourself how much of a health bombshell molecular hydrogen is, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And look, this thing is going to last for ages, and it's going to help you save on health costs in the long run anyway. Nothing's a bigger deal than your health. It's a gift from God or Satan or some sort of magical, unprovable, airy-fairy, objective material universe that is somewhere out there beyond your senses. Even though you can never perceive it directly, you accept on faith that it exists. Whatever you believe in. Nothing's a bigger deal than your health. A gift from your various gods. Go to holyhydrogen.com and use coupon code VONU100. That's Victor Oscar November Uniform 100. And I'm going to have to keep talking to you about this. I'm going to have to keep reading this ad because you guys are actually buying this. There's these things called books, okay? And they're sold by Liberty Under Attack publications. And there's these things called digital books that are sold at libertyunderattack.com/digital, where you can pay with Monero and not give any identifiable information. If you don't have some fancy ghost address to send paper books to, or you just prefer digital books, whatever. But remember to always put a reachable email address in there for Boomer Rayo2, so he can send you the books if something fucks up with the checkout flow. But wait, folks, it gets even better than that, because Rayo2 has gone insane and created the best deal ever called the PAZNIA Radio Network Digital Self-Liberation Bundle XMR Chat Special. So that instead of $33.33, which is already a great deal, for you special PRN autists listening here, for you and you only, if you go to xmrchat.com/PAZNIA radio, leave a donation worth $20 USD or more, and say something about Thane and the Digital Self-Liberation Bundle, you'll get the Digital Self-Liberation Bundle at no further cost. And I, the great Thane Riddle, will get half the Monero. Now, I know what you're thinking. The PAZNIA Radio Network Digital Self-Liberation Bundle XMR Chat Special is 27 syllables long. Is that because there are 27 books in the bundle and 27 hours in the audiobook bundle? First of all, you're starting to scare me. Stop counting things. But the answer is no, because the XMR Chat Special gives you another 10 books on top of that 27. It's a crazy deal. Take advantage of it. Send 20 USD or more worth of Monero at xmrchat.com/PAZNIA radio. Say something about the digital book bundle. Also, leave your email address in there and check the private message box or use a super DM so that not everyone sees your email. But wait, what if I were to say something new that you haven't heard before for the first time ever this week? What if I were to read a new ad that makes this even more magical? Because you're giving us money, we want to make even more money, and we want to give you even crazier deals that lose us immense amounts of money in the long run, because then there's nothing else for you to buy on Liberty Under Attack for years. Why stop at only taking the books out of reading books when you can also take the reading out of reading books? That's right, folks. There's now a deal on a shitload of audiobooks as well, with the all-new XMR Chat LUA Publications Sounds of Self-Liberation Mega Bundle. You can get 72 hours of audio magic by donating only $30 USD or more worth of XMR at xmrchat.com/PAZNIA radio and leaving an email address. And Rayo2 will send you a link to a file that's more than 4 gigabytes big, which will have the Brushfire Thriller series by Matthew Watecki, Second Realm, book on strategy. I think that's by Smuggler and XYZ. That's a cool book. The original Vonu books, Privacy and Security Culture, audiobooks by Kyle Reardon, and much more. Now I know what you're thinking. Does XMR Chat LUA Publications Sounds of Self-Liberation Mega Bundle have 24 syllables? Because you're going to say it 3 times in this ad read, which makes 72, and that's how many hours of audio there are in the bundle. First off, how do you know I'm going to say it 3 times? Smart ass. Second, stop messing with my head and start getting a crazy deal on audiobooks by going to xmrchat.com/PAZNIA radio, leaving a donation worth 30 USD or more with a working email address, or for a double 360 win, a 720 win, if you will, for 72 hours. Why not leave a donation worth 50 USD or more and get both the PAZNIA Radio Network Digital Self-Liberation Bundle XMR Chat Special and XMR Chat LUA Publication Sounds of Self-Liberation Mega Bundle. Fuck, I did say it 3 times after all, motherfucker. Do you want to join the Second Realm officially? Fingerprints, semen sample, piss, shit, blood. Give all of it to us optionally by going to PAZNIA.com/Thane, THANE. Officially join the Second Realm and get discounts on other hustles in the Agora, more access to the PAZNIA Radio Network, an elite organization of KYCers that take pictures of their face every day, and maybe even some free PAZNIA merch. Go to PAZNIA.com/Thane. Check out all the perks of becoming an honorary stakeholder and put in coupon code Thane to get $25 off. What am I supposed to do now? I'm supposed to do some kind of... Supposed to do taking out the trash. Oh yeah, it's a down-to-earth tip. I don't know if you want to play the audio thing for that audio intro. You can if you want.
Here's
to.
Thane Riddle with this week's Down to Earth tip.
Ugh. That sound is especially appropriate for today's Down to Earth tip. Which is probably something I fucking covered before. Just it feels too much like deja vu. Usually when I get that feeling, that means I'm right. But whatever. It's not like I got anything better. It's not like I got anything better to do for the next 15 minutes. So we're gonna talk about taking out the trash, disposing of things. Sometimes you have trash that should not be found because it has something juicy on it or in it or is it. So you got to get rid of it the right way. If it is data on paper, you should, burn it or something. But shredding is all right if it's a high security shredder. That means that it cuts it into tinier bits. And there are different security levels that I don't know off the top of my head. Sorry, but you can go learn about that or something. If it's digital data, namely if it's unencrypted or the key has been leaked to the encrypted data, then you must wipe it by overwriting. You must wipe it by overwriting it. It is the only way. This could, because as you may know, if you're not like a boomer, or wait, even if you are not a boomer, you may not know. Deleting something, putting it into, quote unquote, deleting a file. For the most part, it just means that you're deleting, references to the file in the file system. The data still remains on the drive until something else accidentally overwrites it. And even then, if your attacker is very advanced, like like if it's going to be sent to the NSA for fucking where they have an electron microscope to look at the chip or something, you're gonna have to do something Thane Riddle level to get them that interested in you. But if that happens, then in theory they can actually overwrite something, so to speak, because they can tell how many times a bit has been flipped by looking at it through an electron microscope, and they can then automatically computationally guess what data might have been there, fill in some of those blanks. So that's why when you overwrite stuff, you do it proper style. You could be using a good old-fashioned Linux utility such as Shred, or you could be using a graphical program that this is what you'll likely be doing, like BleachBit. Okay, just like Hillary Clinton with her email server, right? She had some kid delete the stuff with BleachBit, right? That's what you'll do. It's actually a good recommendation. Now, if your attacker isn't very advanced with digital forensics, any old overwriting will do the trick. It doesn't have to be something fancy. You could just overwrite it once with zeros or random data, and that will stop your local electronics repair guy or your little brother who's good with computers. It'll stop them from using their recovery software. But like I said, if it's somebody like the NSA or something, you'll want to do at least something like a DoD 3 pass, or maybe even something more paranoid. But I'd say a DoD 3 pass is the bare minimum for stopping a really advanced, really cutting edge attacker. Because I guess I can't remember the order, but it's like one passes all zeros, one passes all ones, one passes all random. So that way there's randomness, and every bit is flipped at least once. And some bits, and they're flipped a random number of times, and every bit is flipped at least once. That's basically the result that has. So it makes it much harder when you're looking at it through an electron microscope to know what the hell is going on. Now, if we're talking about tossing out something tougher, like a metal license plate, something that you can't put through a shredder and you can't burn, this is where you need to get a little creative. You could cut it up with like a reciprocating saw or bolt cutters or something. Now, cutting it up into tinier bits is better. I don't know if you have anything hot enough to melt that down, but if you do, you could. And for the most part, if you need to cut something up because it's something that's not good for burning or shredding, and you need to cut it up, for the most part, you want to stay away from this pitfall where you throw it out in a bunch of different places. For the most part, just pick one spot and throw it all out there, but make it somewhere that's like out of the way and has nothing to do with you. No one's going to come looking. No one's going to find it. No one will ever know. It's going to end up in some landfill or whatever. Usually something that ends up buried in a landfill is for the best, because once it's there, it's condemned. It won't be found until Fry from Futurama takes the Planet Express ship to the garbage asteroid in space, and then maybe they'll see it or something. But that's about it. Once something's buried in a landfill, once you get it to that point where it's buried in the landfill, it's gone. It's gonzo. It's done. No one's going to find it, most likely. But yeah, the pitfall with you put a little bit of it here and a little bit of it there. That's fucking dumb. Because if you cut up, let's say, a license plate, okay, somebody knows they're looking for a license plate either before they've even found anything, or as soon as they found one piece, they know what it is. So now we're looking for pieces of a license plate, and they're like, "Oh, it's so weird. Look at this. There's a little bit here. There's a little bit there." It's fucking stupid. It increases the odds that they'll find something, and you don't need to find all of it for it to be incriminating. Or I'll give you. There's a case that really happened where a guy, like, what did he do? He killed his wife, and he did this thing which was actually pretty clever, like a movie idea, where he took the bottom of some boots or something, and he cut off the soles of those boots and he like glued it to the bottom of his slippers so that he would leave these wrong footprints for like boots that were maybe even a different size from his shoe size, which that idea alone is kind of brilliant, but the rest of it, he really fucked it up because like the slippers had all the fucking glue on it from when he glued the thing to it. And then he cut up the soles and he disposed of them a little bit here, a little bit there, all over the place. And it was in his like fucking house. Fucking stupid, dude. So it should not be in your house. It should be somewhere way out of the way. No one's ever going to find some random dumpster behind a fucking plaza or something, behind some sort of commercial property or something. And Jesus Christ, man. I mean, anywhere the cops looked, they would turn up a little piece of a boot and they'd be like, hey, look, it's a piece of a sole of a boot. Oh, it looks like some sort of weird plot to hide your footprints is when you kill your wife. You know, like, that's the first thing you think of. Fucking stupid. Anyway. Now, if you're gonna try and get rid of a body or something, it is a bit tricky. First of all, don't show anything on surveillance camera footage that would look an awful lot like you're getting rid of a body. If somebody is seen coming to your apartment and never coming out again, and then you're seen taking out a heavy suitcase, doesn't look too good. Everybody knows from looking at the footage what's happening. Don't be a fucking retard. You can indeed cut up a body into smaller bits to make it easier to haul around, because bodies are, for the most part, heavy as fuck. Very heavy. However, the odds of splattering blood in weird spots are high, very high when you cut up a body. So you want to do it like that guy from the show Dexter. What was his name again? Anyway, cover everything in plastic. We're talking like a watertight condom of plastic. Okay. It requires serious meticulousness if you're not the kind of person who, if you have like ADHD and you're not the most precise person in the world, time to get some help. And also cover yourself too before you go spluttering blood everywhere, getting your hair on things. And then you got to get rid of the plastic as well. You're making more waste. With that said, it is true that bleach destroys DNA. And the hospitals and biohazard crews have stuff like Trigene and Virkon. But if somebody finds out that you cleansed your spot, your apartment or whatever with fucking Trigene or Virkon, might look a little bit weirder than bleach would. Might look a little bit weirder. Oh, geez, why are they using a cleaning product that's explicitly meant for biohazards? That's kind of weird. What kind of biohazard did you have in your apartment here, buddy? Would you take a shit on the floor or something? No, actually, my grandma died in here when I was on a trip. Anyway, yeah, stick with bleach. Much easier to explain. Yes, they know why you really did it, but it's plausible deniability. Now, on the other hand, you also do want to keep your hair, your dog's hair, your cum, you creep, and so forth off of the body, because, you know, if it's found, it might look a bit bad. You can come up with a story, maybe, for why your cum was inside the body, but hair won't be so easy to write off. So be very careful about that, because slipping up on that is really not too hard to do. You put the body in your trunk. The trunk has your dog's hair on it. It gets on the body. You know, that's literally happened. And yeah, you can dissolve a body in acid, kind of, but it's not something you don't want this to be your first time trying that when you really need it, because it's complicated. It's hard to do. and it usually, I think it takes a long time too. Now, very deep water, like far enough off the shore in the sea, can be a great way to get rid of a body for good. If dropped in the right spot, it is done. It is gone for good. If you have alligators around, of course, and you're lucky enough that they actually eat the body quite quickly, then once again, you're in good shape. That's a tried and true way of doing it. Oh, it's already the robots telling you jokes time. So, whatever. I'll see you in like 5 minutes. We'll have our guest, Max, or probably more than 5 minutes, whatever. Guest Max Hillebrand will be here. Blah, blah, blah. Enjoy the jokes and the breaks. Now, when it comes to weird alternative health shit, you may have heard of Brown's gas, boss, aka molecular hydrogen. Technically, actually, molecular hydrogen is just one part of what Brown's gas is, but whatever. It's a kind of wellness treatment used by health professionals and weirdos all over the world, both mainstream and otherwise. They got gas bars in Japan and shit. Big body of research showing that this therapy likely helps with pretty much everything: cancer, diabetes, heart disease, pretty much every organ system in the body. Over 1,500 papers, therapeutic potential for 170 diseases. In broad strokes, it works by fucking electrolyzing water into hydrogen and oxygen, and then you breathe that shit and you drink the water that it's bubbled through. And these gases are, negatively charged and shit, and they get into every cell of your body. It's probably how magical healing springs work, at least partially. The water is hydrogen enriched. Now, the PAZNIA Department of Health and Wellness has run R&D on these machines for about 4 years, and the top machine being recommended right now is the Lord's Hydrofix by Holy Hydrogen. And can you believe it? We have a coupon code for a product that isn't on our own fucking store. There's a first time for everything, so save a fat chunk of change on the Department of Health and Wellness's top recommended machine, and support Cloak and Dagger at the same time by heading on over to holyhydrogen.com and inputting coupon code VONU100 to get $100 off your Lord's Hydrofix. You're going to want to do your own research on this. The Molecular Hydrogen Institute website can help you with that. There's whatever, you can use whatever resources you want. There's a huge body of research on this. You know as well as I do, hopefully, that there are a lot of bullshit health tonics and gimmicks being hawked out there. The Brown's gas is one of the truest, most powerful tonic treatments out there in the world by far. When you learn for yourself how much of a health and wellness bombshell molecular hydrogen truly is, you're gonna see why having your own machine is truly worth the investment. These machines are a bit costly, okay? I'm not gonna lie to you, but they last for ages, and they may help you save on health costs in the long run. Nothing's a bigger deal than your health, so pony the fuck up. Go to holyhydrogen.com, use coupon code VONU100, Victor Oscar November Uniform 100. Get $100 off.
Hey guys, Scott here for Liberty Under Attack Publications. Looking for a Liberty-focused publisher? Liberty Under Attack publishes books and strategy guides for individuals looking to increase their personal freedom. They assist authors through the entire publishing process: proofreading, editing, cover designs, paperback and Kindle formatting, and full audiobook narration and post-production. Tell them Scott sent you and get 20% off a full service deal. To get some one-of-a-kind books or for more information, visit libertyunderattack.com.
Liberty Under Attack Publications is your source for all things self-liberation. Featuring high-quality agorist and anarchist fiction, Paul Rosenberg's A Lodging of Wayfaring Men, and his The Breaking Dawn are two great starts. The Brushfire series by Matthew Wojtecki is stellar, #Agora, and more. Save Bitcoin or fiat by buying a bundle, such as the Strategy Sample Pack, wherein you can explore a few different strategies to the problem of freedom. At Current, Vonu, Ben Stone's Vision, and Second Realm, book on strategy. And once you're inspired to take action in your own life, head on over to the Ghost Pads and Privacy Tools tab to get yourself a Ghost Phone and Ghost Pad, and secure your communications from both the public and private spies. Stock up your home apothecary with items from Aura's Apothecary, Black Drawing Salve, Comfrey Salve, Natural Insect Repellent, and much more. And finally, the newest addition, PAZNIA Farms canned goods, cowboy candy, pickles, salsa, etc. Of course, all of the canned goods and the apothecary items are made with the highest quality ingredients, some grown here at the homestead. Head on over to libertyunderattack.com, again libertyunderattack.com, to check out our full catalog or to place your order today. Bitcoin accepted and preferred. Email if you'd like to pay with XMR, shane@libertyunderattack.com, or if you'd like to place an international order. Again, libertyunderattack.com. Liberty Under Attack Publications. Share your story, find your freedom.
And now, back to Cloak and Dagger with host Thane Riddle.
There's no way. Maybe it's just something about that song in particular. Something about it just doesn't feel right.
It just ain't right. That's the devil's music.
We have a guest and a preeminent, fancy, accomplished guest. This guy named Max Hillebrand. Welcome.
Hey, fellas, it's good to be back on the show.
Oh my God, they didn't tell me you were Scottish or something. That changes everything. Now I have to rewrite all my questions.
Well, it comes with a curveball.
They have to say like "I dunno ken" and things like that. Anyway, you should probably tell them who you are.
Well, I'm a cypherpunk. I like building freedom tech tools, and that's, I think, quite a practical, straightforward path to liberation. So that extends on the monetary realm, but also in other realms, communication, coordination, marketplaces. All of these underlying technology systems have to be designed and implemented and shipped. And I think that's a good strategy to bring a bit of more freedom into our lives. So that's why I'm doing it.
I would say so. I think that's pretty important stuff to work on. Now, this question is going to be a little bit on the nose for you, more than for some other guests. But
how have privacy and security come up in your life?
Well, it's something that I didn't think about too much at first, but then I realized that theft is a bad thing, and then the interesting question of, okay, how do we prevent it? How do we make it unprofitable to steal? Is when that comes to the forefront. And privacy is so cool because it makes the cost of attack incredibly expensive. Because if the adversary doesn't know who you are, where you are, what you have, then signaling you out and pointing out and attacking you becomes extremely inefficient and extremely expensive. And that means most likely you're not a profitable victim. And so privacy breaks that OODA loop in its first possible step, right, in the observation. And that means the entire decision chain of the adversary is disrupted, and that causes confusion. And that's a good thing. So privacy is important in that regard. And thankfully, we have cyberspace and encryption and cryptography in general. And with that, we can manifest a whole bunch of useful things in cyberspace that are secure and censorship resistant and anonymous. And for that,
What
that's
kinds of
useful.
privacy stuff are you most into, both digital and otherwise? And like, how did you get into that?
So my main first contribution was that on monetary privacy. Right? Bitcoin is obviously a fantastic monetary system, but one of its main downsides is that every transaction has to be verified by everyone else in the system, and that doesn't scale because it is not private. And both of them suck. So that was my first quest to fix that. And there's this old technique known as a coin join, which is basically a collaborative Bitcoin transaction. So I was quite fascinated with this technology because it allows us to make Bitcoin private without having to change the consensus rules in Bitcoin. So it's something that's deployable immediately, right? And that's super powerful. And then that also leads you to a whole bunch of other interesting cryptography, like Chaumian blind signatures, right? Which is in the CoinJoin process used to make the communication between client and server anonymous, basically. So that really got me hooked on that technology as well. Just a super simple cryptography scheme that can be used in so many different use cases. And yeah, so that's basically Wasabi Wallet, right? That was a project where we made Bitcoin private. So if you want to use Bitcoin privately, just check out Wasabi Wallet.
Well, before I piss you off by talking to you about that, let's talk about white noise, because white noise strikes me as pretty neat. And you're working on white noise, correct? What are you doing there?
Yeah, exactly. So white noise is basically the next big problem that I want to tackle, and that's private communication, and that's extremely difficult to achieve. Much more difficult than I actually thought it would be, especially if we want to do it in a decentralized setting. And so there's the Nostr network, which is a super simple way to pass along signed messages in a standardized way so that they can be created and interpreted in different client implementations. Super simple protocol, just uses signatures and hashes and text files. So really trivial to understand and then incredibly powerful in the breadth of different applications that can be built on top of it. But the core of that protocol was designed for publishing information. If you want to get out, information about your ideas or the products that you're selling, and that's was his main design goal. But it had so many cool features and was still lacking a way to use this for private information. Right? So how do I only tell one person or a small group of friends about a certain piece of information? Arguably much more important than publication. We speak much more in private than we speak in public. And so that had to be addressed as well. And we found this beautiful cryptography system called the messaging layer security protocol, which is a way that a group of people can derive a shared key, which they can then use to encrypt messages. And this is a protocol on how to rotate these keys frequently, and so that every message gets encrypted with a new key. And if any one of our private keys gets leaked, then not our entire transaction history is leaked, but just that one specific message. And then also, how do we add and remove members from a group? Because these social gatherings are fluid and people join and leave. So past and future messages have to be protected from previous members of the group. And yeah, the interesting thing for this is that it's not just an application that we're working on, right? That's white noise. That's the boring part. That's something like Signal or SimpleX, an encrypted chat app, and hopefully unstoppable and censorship resistant and private and encrypted. But the much more interesting thing is that underneath that is a protocol called the Marmot protocol, which defines in 6 short documents on how to do this, right? How to build this. And then by now there's, I think, 4 or 5 different libraries that implement this protocol. And then there's like 7 or 8 clients that implement the protocol with those libraries. So there's now really a handful of apps that you can use to communicate with each other Doesn't matter which of these apps you use because they all speak the same protocol. And even better, it should be trivial for you or your AI agent to build this protocol into your existing or new application, and then still have the capability of send messages securely to a group of people, even to those that are not using your own app. And so that is something that's super powerful. And we still have a lot of the quirks to iron out, but it's going to be, I think, an integral part in our communication tech stack for the future.
I think another cool thing to bring up about the MLS encryption protocol is that it scales quite well. Like it can support groups up to like thousands of people, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the theory for that is that with something like Simplex, if you have a group message, and let's say there are 10 people in the group, everyone has their own private public key pair, and we're
Right.
rotating these, right? And so you would have to encrypt and upload 10 pieces of text in order to send one message. And that obviously doesn't scale so well.
That's right.
And so there are ways that we can consolidate that. And the way that MLS does it is by just using one key to encrypt the message to. And now we just have to figure out how to get the keys to the other people of the group, right? And so think of it as a consensus mechanism for deriving or getting to a private key that the entire group knows, and a way to run this all the time, basically, to keep getting new keys that everyone knows about. There's
Yeah.
still some scalability issues that we haven't really addressed. So at the moment, we've tested it with like 40 people in a group, something like this, and it worked fine. There is going to be some bottlenecks that we hit at 150 people, just because Noster relays often have a size limit on the events that they accept, and we would hit that with the current implementation. So we can do a little bit more fiddling, but in theory, the MLS spec, especially in its light variant, could scale into the millions of participants of a group. I mean, it's going to be hard to get there on a practical manner, but it's not impossible anymore, which is cool.
Yeah, I like MLS. It's definitely a good innovation. Now, am I sensing that you guys also developed Marmot, not just White Noise?
Yeah, exactly. So this really went hand in hand, and we white noise is basically just our way to hack around with this problem, and we've been doing so for about 2 years or something on how to do this. But then very soon we started to pull out the essential core logic of our code and putting it into a library, and then continuously working on a specification. So there's now, yeah.
What other
Or
Marmot clients are there that are like noteworthy? What do they do?
so there's yeah so the very first one was really interesting because it was not a chat app at all, and to be honest though, it was only a hacky proof of concept, and I think is abandoned now, but the idea is cool. And it's basically a content creation studio for kids. And so you want your kids to be able to express themselves and create videos, but you don't want the entire world to see because the world's a dangerous place. So you as a parent want to have access control over who can read the videos of your kids. And so the parents create a Marmot group, and the parents are the admins of that group, and only admins can add members to a group. And then the child is not an admin, but he has write privileges in the group. And so this way you can have a private community for watching videos. And so that's, that was the very first alternative implementation of Marmot. But since then, the Vector team is working on it. Vector is also a chat app for Noster. There's PCAT chat, which is mainly done so that your AI agents can talk to each other. Because if you want to connect your OpenClaw or something to your Signal account or WhatsApp account, and that's a whole pain in the ass and also has some security downsides. And you can't just give them a new account because each account is tied to a phone number. So that sucks. With Noster and White Noise, you just create a new key pair and you have a new account. So agents can just sign up to the protocol by creating a private public key pair. No identity or KYC required. And so that makes it quite good. And yeah, just a couple days ago, the Amethyst, the OG Android Noster client, also started working on a Marmot implementation. So it's going to be more and more.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you want to speak at all to how white noise messages are like rooted and stored on Nostr nodes?
Yeah, exactly. So MLS is just an encryption scheme and a key establishment protocol, basically. So they leave two things out of scope entirely, and the first thing is what they call the authentication service. So that is basically who says which keys are which identity. And the way that they built this is, or thought about this was that, well, there's Google. Google gives you the identity, and then the Google server says that, okay, this public key belongs to this username. Um, and that's of course cucked. So the way that we use Nostr for this is that you are your own authentication service. Right? You declare that this is your username, and you sign that declaration with your private key, and then you sign your subkeys with your private key as well. Right? And so here we tie your identity, your username, together with your subkeys that we actually start using for the MLS encryption scheme. And because we use your Nostr identity, we get your web of trust. So if you've been shitposting on Nostr for a long time, then you can take your existing identity, and now people can send you private messages to that identity. So this is the first way that Nostr integrates. And the second thing that MLS leaves out of scope is the message delivery. So how do we actually send this encrypted message to everyone that needs it? And again, the original idea was you use Google server, right? You just upload the message there, and they will give it to whoever has the correct username. But again, that sucks. So we can easily decentralize that by just using Nostr relays and Nostr events. So what we do is we take the encrypted, so we take a message, we do that whole state machine that gives us a private key from MLS. We encrypt that for the first time with MLS's encryption scheme, and then we encrypt it a second time with JAJA20, and then we put that ciphertext into a Nostr event and sign it with an ephemeral key, and add on the outside a random group ID. And this event gets then put to Nostr relays. By default, we put it on 3 relays. You could put it on more. You can take any of the thousands of available public relays. You can run your own for like, $1 a month on a cheap VPS or on an old laptop somewhere. So many ways that you could run your own relays. And then other members of the group know which relays this group is communicating on, and they know the random group ID. So they connect to the relay and get, with a WebSocket request, the latest messages of this group, and then locally decrypt it twice, and then they can actually read it and put it in the database. And from that point out, your messages are stored locally. And so you don't check on relays for old messages. Once you have them, you store them in your database, and then you actually delete the private key that was used in MLS for this message.
How long do nodes store the messages?
So that depends basically on what the relay configures it. I don't think that we have an expiration date on these messages, on these auto events.
What's typical? Like if someone's offline for a while, like how soon do they have to come online reasonably to pick up their messages?
For the big relays, it's almost never. Like sometimes the Damos relay nukes all of its events, but that is more like an accidental thing, and happens maybe every other year or something. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it'll be a lot more reliable than SimpleX, but that's kind of a low bar. Is it's taken them years to implement any kind of redundancy when it comes to like your receiving addresses or whatever.
Like I I have kind of a love and hate relationship with Simplex because
Yeah,
it's
me
so
too.
cool, especially their incognito profiles. But damn, it's unreliable. You know, and I was always complaining from the outside, and now with White Noise, I see how fucking hard this problem is, and we're having so much pain to get White Noise to be as reliable as Simplex in the early days, which means White Noise is not really reliable at the moment. Um, and only in the last couple releases, we're slowly getting a grip on the situation. So
Well, I mean, you're thinking along the right lines because you're putting the message on more than one server right away, and that's kind of like the number one thing Simplex got wrong, is that it didn't do that from the start.
Yeah, exactly. But that does open you up to a whole can of other worms, because one of the previous White Noise releases worked great for new accounts that were created. But if you logged in with an existing account that has, you know, hundreds or thousands of people in your follow list, and all of these follows have in their relay lists different relays that they claim they put their notes on. So your client should connect to all of these many available relays, and all of a sudden you're connecting to hundreds or thousands of relays, and our code wasn't well handled or well written for that, so the app just kind of puked itself. um, you know, so like the decentralized system is really, really, really hard, and we would have had an easier life of starting out very centralized, and and then maybe later adding, you know, a second backup relay or something like this. This would have been a lot easier, because the decentralized stuff is hard, especially on mobile phones and battery restricted devices. That's probably
Yeah.
one of the main leftover critiques we keep getting, is that the battery drain is too hard. Um, so yeah, there's a bunch of trade-offs there.
It's worth it. It's the principle.
Yeah, totally.
Let's talk more about the end-to-end encryption. I mean, we already talked a little bit about it, but what does multi-device support look like? Is there any seamless multi-device experience implemented or planned?
Yeah, a couple nuances here. So the first is in the MLS spec itself. This is actually one of the things that it is from the ground up designed to do. In Signal, multi-device was kind of tagged on afterwards to the protocol. In MLS, it's a first-class citizen. So basically, every device that you have will generate its own MLS private public key pair, and then the authentication service will sign off on this key package. So again, with Marnet, the authentication service is the NSEC. So you will need your NSEC in order to create a subkey on your new device, and those subkeys are not there to be backed up or anything, right? These are very short-lived rotational keys that kick off this key rotation scheme basically. And in each device has its own. You can kind of think of them a little bit like PGP subkeys. You know, your master key can sign off on subkeys, so then have certain permissions. Kind of the same model. And then, yeah, so you can have multiple, you know, 5, 10, 100 different devices. And they would each be first-class citizens. So with Signal, you have your main phone account, and then if you log into the desktop, that's a secondary account. It has less privileges than the first one. So you know, that's, for example, why you cannot have the same Signal account on two phone numbers. On two phones or two user spaces in the same phone. Right? You're limited to one phone per user in Signal, and that existence isn't there, or that problem isn't there in Marmot. The thing though is we have not yet fully implemented multi-device support. Neither in the Marmot spec, there's an open PR for that. Like we're working on this very soon, and then we'll put it into the libraries, and then we'll ship it in White Noise, and help all of the other clients to make sure that works. So at the very moment, it's best to spin up a new private key, a new NSEC for each of the Marmot clients that you log into. In a couple 2 weeks, we should be out of that problem.
That's good news. Now, am I right in understanding that White Noise does not quite have post-quantum encryption by default yet, but it can easily swap out algorithms?
Yes, that's correct. So there's two different crypto suites used here. For the top layer, we have Noster, and that uses Schnorr signatures, right? That's elliptic curve. So these are not quantum resistant. So um, basically, the authentication service is compromised against the quantum attacker, and that breaks the whole MLS system. Right now, the adversary could crack your NSEC and then create new key packages and add himself to a group, basically, and then he would be a fly on the wall inside a group. But then the second thing is the actual encryption of messages. And here we don't use the Schnorr scheme, but I think Cha-Cha 20 over, or no, was it AES over the ED25119 curve? Something like this. And
what I
the
read on the
interesting,
website.
yeah, and the interesting thing here is that for MLS, these are versioned cipher suites that are defined on a group level. So there's already multiple cipher suites that you can use, and they already have one proposal for a quantum resistant cipher suite. And you can add your own cipher suites. We initially thought that we might create a Schnorr signature or Schnorr encryption cipher suite, but decided against that ultimately. But we could do that. And the cool thing is, if you create a group now in version 1 encryption scheme, then the group administrator can later say that, okay, now we will switch to version 2, which
Yeah.
might be a quantum resistant scheme. So cipher suite rotation is built into the MLS protocol,
Right. Yeah.
which is super cool. And then there's also some early research on how to get the Noster network quantum resistant with both a quantum signature scheme as well as an encryption scheme. So yeah, both of these systems can be upgraded quite easily.
Now, I'm a big alarmist pusher of PQE. I think it should have been adopted everywhere 5 years ago or something. SimpleX already has it in one-on-one chats for at least a
Yeah.
year, which is nice. So when the hell is PQE coming as the default, maybe to wait? Is there we got a roadmap for this? It doesn't sound very close.
Yeah, it's really something to consider for trade-offs here, because for one, they're just less performant, more expensive to create, and larger in size and larger to verify. So that's just an issue, especially for Bitcoin. Not so much for Noster stuff. We would just hit some bottlenecks a bit sooner, but nothing critical. Then the other thing though is just time in the market, basically. Like, it's very common that novel cryptography systems get broken in counterintuitive way years after they've been developed. So I'm a bit cautious of jumping on a very recent complicated crypto scheme that sure has gotten some audits and stuff, but ultimately this thing takes time. So I'd be cautious with using novel cryptography in any case. And there's then some threshold where this has to be mitigated. Right? There's also things like calculation of how expensive is it going to be to create that quantum computer, and then once you have it, how expensive is it going to be to operate it for any one given attack? And then you can calculate of, okay, this particular message that I'm sending, or this particular amount of Bitcoin that I'm holding, is that profitable for the attacker to come after? And if you're holding 10,000 sats on a UTXO, but it costs millions of dollars to acquire and then use marginally the quantum computer, then there's much more juicier targets that you don't really have to worry about.
Do
So
you
I'm not losing that much sleep over it.
are you aware of any like papers about projected expense of quantum computing or anything like that? Because you've gotten me curious.
No, not really, to be honest. I mean, they're all insanely expensive at the moment, and you do need to keep them at negative, or like close to 0 Kelvin temperature. So I'm sure that that's going to be insanely expensive, just on a per hour basis. But
Yeah.
exact calculation, hard to say.
The kind of attacker though, that's primarily interested in developing and using this technology right now, though they aren't really interested in profit. They're interested in blowing billions and billions of dollars just on fucking with people. That's kind of what they do. And they're also storing a bunch of encrypted data forever in the hopes that they'll be able to crack it later. So this is why it's concerning to me. I definitely agree that like novel crypto is something that has to be, put through its paces or whatever before anyone trusts it on its own.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do kind of think people should be more worried about quantum cryptanalysis than they are, because I every once in a while I skim the papers and I feel like they're making really big strides all the time on like exactly the problems that are making it hard to have more qubits, more fidelity in a quantum computer. I feel like the progress is pretty good. I don't know how imminent it is really, but it's enough to have me worried about that. I like quantum computers, more power to them, but it's something I'm a little worried about.
Yeah. And you can always just do double encryption.
Right. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah. Which is even less efficient. But I kind of think it would be worth doing. I think it should be adopted like now in cases where it's not totally unfeasible. To do that.
Yeah, we're definitely having an eye on that. Our number one priority is to make it work. that's the first thing.
I understand it's not that mature yet. Marmot and White Noise are just kind of starting out.
And the cool thing is that MLS is so actively worked on by so many people that we don't have to solve these really hard questions ourselves.
Right. Yeah. It'll
really
be the
grateful for
MLF
that.
people that do that for sure.
Yeah.
Now we got to touch on metadata obfuscation because that's one of the biggest fucking deals when it comes to communications privacy, and yet there are very few messaging protocols that get it right. In fact, I think only Session it's really the only one that has truly good metadata obfuscation out of the gate, out of the usable, well-known protocols anyway. So what are you guys doing for metadata obfuscation?
Yeah, there's again so many layers here. Maybe to start it off with, if it's so hard to do, and especially in a decentralized network of potentially malicious relays, like a really sober analysis is difficult. So what we do basically is what's on the outer layer of a Marmot event. We have a random group ID, we have ciphertext, we have a timestamp, and we have a public key and signature of a random ephemeral private key. And that's it. There's a kind number, right? So it's people know that it's a Marmot event. People know roughly when it was published, even though there is some fuzzing in those timestamps. And they know a group ID. But the trick with this group IDs is that you can rotate them. So given a group ID, you don't know when this group was created. And there can be multiple group IDs simultaneously for the same underlying group. So you don't know the total message activity. You have a lower bound, but not the upper bound of how many messages are sent in the group. And there is no indication of who is the sender of the group, because we have the ephemeral key signing it. And there is no indication of who's the receiver of the group, just by looking at the event structure itself. So only on that point, I would say it's actually quite good. We don't know if this is a note to self or syncing something between two devices of the same user, or if it's in a group with hundreds of thousands of people. Right? You do get some relative activity, and things like you send a message a month ago and then you wait and you don't rotate group IDs and you send another message now, then this would indicate inactivity in the group for a month. Now, these types of analysis, we just haven't put much effort yet in the code to really harden against this. What worries me more, though, is on the underlying privacy to the Noster client relay connection. Because our main goal is basically first and foremost to fix the Nostr private messaging experience, and we're trying to do that on the legacy infrastructure and key systems. And so we do use Schnorr SIGs in some part of the protocol and other cryptography elsewhere because we want to be interoperable with Nostr. And so that gives us some constraints here, that we're using an infrastructure that was intended for the publication of messages. And we're just hijacking it to also do private messages. So the main problem here is that the relay operator knows the events that you're querying. And that worries me. And it's not necessary, it doesn't have to be like that, but it is currently like that. And
that would require a change in Nostr, right?
Exactly. And I've been thinking long and hard about this. And I think the only thing that would fundamentally solve this is something called private information retrieval. You can basically query a database and get the result, but in a way that the database operator only sees ciphertext. He doesn't know what you queried and what the result was. So very powerful system, but I haven't found.
How the hell does that work? What executes it?
Yeah, that's magic, right? So it's they use homomorphic encryption. So basically, I have a query, like give me the second item in the database. Right? I apply a blinding factor to this, multiply it by some curve point probably, right? And now I have ciphertext. I send the ciphertext to the server operator. The server operator takes the ciphertext and runs it across his entire database. Right? So the scales with gigabytes in database, basically. And then he returns results in ciphertext that I again apply that original blinding factor and then get the clear text second row of the database that I was asking for. The problem here is
homomorphic encryption, but yeah, go on.
Yeah. The big problem with this is that Nostr has a non-trivial querying language, right? You would say, hey, give me all the kind ones and kind threes of this pub key since that time. And this type of query, I haven't yet found a system where we can use private information retrieval with that. If someone knows about it, please let me know. That would be great. But so yeah, there's some theory lacking here. And so to bring that a bit more actionable is, let's say you're in two different groups, and your idea would be that nobody learns that the same person is in these two groups. And by just looking at the Nostr events per se, nobody would know. Right? These are just random groups signed off by random keys. So very little information is revealed here. But if you're connecting to the relays and you want to check, have I received any messages in my queue, in my two chats, then you open a WebSocket to the relay and you request events from group ID number 1, group ID number 2. And now the relay operator would learn that someone is interested in these two groups simultaneously at the same time with this IP address. And that is a bit of an issue.
Well, since you're controlling the client, you could make it not do stuff like that, right? Like the client could not make requests like that. It deliberately try not to connect groups to each other and stuff, right?
Exactly, but then if you think through with that, it turns into an unfathomable scale problem. It's like what you basically need to do is make one WebSocket request per group. Right? You open a WebSocket, you ask, is anything in that group? And then you shut it down again. But then the second thing that gets leaked is your IP address. Right? So you would have to connect to the relays with an anonymization layer like Tor. And so that would mean for every chat group that you have, create a new Tor circuit. Right? That takes a couple seconds. Then connect to the relay, open the WebSocket. That takes a bit. Send the query.
Yeah. So this kind of leads me to a question I was going to ask a little bit after, which is, have you put any thought into hijacking Nostr nodes for like onion routing, or is that even possible with Nostr?
Yeah, actually, there is a research project. God, what was it called? Probably Nonion or something like that. No, it wasn't that thing. But yeah, you can absolutely do onion routing over Noster. You don't necessarily want to do that because onion routing is a complex beast, and sure you can have a hacky solution, but it will break down catastrophically in many edge cases or many specific types of attacks. So yeah, I spoke with some researchers from Tor and Nim about this idea, and they were like, "Yeah, it's kind of possible, but why? It's not going to be great." Yeah,
Well,
and so like to go back to the Tor and IP issues. So that's what we did with Wasabi Wallet, right? We needed to connect to one server and obfuscate that multiple API calls belong to the same user. And we use Tor for that and independent Tor circuits. And like, in the worst case, you can have 20 Tor circuits open for one coin join round. And that was an insane, absolute nightmare to do. Like we had so many problems with this just because Tor is unreliable and slow and breaks in weird ways. But at least we were on the desktop and we could have background processes and a proper computer. Try doing that on an iPhone. But it's such a restricted environment that at most you could have like 5 Tor circuits in parallel. But then if you're serious about it, you're limited to 5 groups, and that, of course, that doesn't work. And so you would have to cluster at least some groups in here together. So, and then the question is, okay, what if you're somehow connected to 24 circuits to the relay, but now your Wi-Fi drops, right? And all of your Tor circuits terminate at the same time. And now the relay sees that, hey, all of these previously
correlation.
anonymous connections are now correlated. And so there's just so many little foot guns here that I've kind of given up on this problem, at least for now.
Well,
And
I think you're
private
thinking along the
information
right
retrieval
line.
would
Yeah.
fix it.
Exactly. I agree with you that's more along the right lines. And also similar to that, I think that your random group IDs and group IDs changing and group IDs coexisting is a pretty good start. Have you put any
Yeah.
thought into giving group IDs like a more cryptographic nature? Like I don't know if zero knowledge proofs make sense for this, but the idea would be that every single message has another group ID or something other than a group ID that is magically understood for cryptographic reasons by other members of the group. Something like that.
Yeah. So a little bit more nuance on what's currently implemented is that there are 2 group IDs. There's the one group ID that we get from MLS. And that is a static group ID. So this cannot be changed for a given group. A group is defined by a static string of random ID. And the thing is, we didn't want to leak that data to the public. So that's why we came up with this idea of having a second group ID that we randomly generate on Marmot's side. And then we can rotate it and run multiple in parallels, but they all resolve down to the same long-term MLS group identity. One idea that's also currently kind of swirling around is that we, instead of having this tag as group ID, we could have a private public key pair as group ID. And we could use the MLS magic to get a new NSEC that everyone in the group knows. And that is the key that we sign messages off. And then instead of having to search for a tag from relays, we would search from nodes published by this key. And we would still get, identification. On top of that, we would get some spam protections because you could only publish that message if you know the private key, and only members of the group know that private key. And what was the other interesting benefit here? Yeah, so there's a couple ideas. It's active research.
What about other like common insidious kinds of metadata, like presence, typing notifications, delivery receipts. Do you guys have that on by default?
Yeah, great question. There's so many scary attacks with read receipts. Like if you're a Signal user, just turn them off, to be honest. It's
You should turn them
it's
off
too much of
everywhere.
yeah, yeah. So the cool thing is of the server doesn't know read receipts. Right? With Signal, for example,
Well, I just mean other
if
users, contacts, you know.
so at the moment contacts don't know read receipts. Noster relays don't know read receipts either, right? So that's contrary to the Signal server. The Signal server knows that the message has been delivered to your phone. No Noster relay knows that as clearly as Signal does, which is cool. There are some ways that we could do typing indicators, either via Noster events or media over quick relays. So a couple ideas here.
You
But
should
honestly,
keep it
because
off
it
by
is
default, though.
yeah, exactly. Like, because this is such a security nightmare, it's at least not a priority. And let's see if users ask for it.
Even then, they should have to opt into it. What about presence? Does your protocol leak user presence?
Define user presence a bit more.
You can tell that someone's online or not.
So what we see is your Noster events on relays. Specifically, Marmot related would be your key packages. So there is actually in our so Marmot runs on the browser as well, which is by the way super cool. So there's already a dev environment on the browser, the Marmot web chat. And here you actually see on your Noster relays what are the most recent key packages published. So you do see users that are Marmot users and that have recently rotated their key packages. Which can be for a number of reasons, but most commonly because they were invited to a group. So that is present. And then you know the metadata of a group, of someone sent a message to that group. You could find that out. You don't know who the sender is, and you don't know who the members of that group are. And then the relays also know when a event was searched for and downloaded. And then they can correlate that to IP address. So the relay operator, if he knows your IP address and can correlate that to you, he would see that you have requested messages from this group at this time.
Yeah, all right. It's all very sticky, all this metadata stuff, especially when you have this requirement of like we have to build on Noster, which is a noble effort. Like somebody had to do it the best way. Somebody had to do direct messages on Noster the best way.
Yeah, but I'm not even that opposed of just spinning up a new relay specification that does this. Like we did that with Blossom, for example. Blossom is the Noster way of doing pictures, basically, just the simplest hash addressable file storage system. And it's beautiful. It works so well. We use it in Marmot as well. So it's not impossible that we could spin up, some new protocol spec for a server that is designed to relay private messages to a group of people. We could probably do some cool things there, but I'm not yet entirely convinced that it's impossible to do it well on Noster relays. And so I kind of like to
especially if
fix
the
the
protocol
existing
changes.
protocols first. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, good luck with that. So it's time for me to read whatever sparse fan mails here and start taking call-ins if anyone wants to call in. PAZNIA.com/call to let's see. Visit Res Publica Khazia said, finally. Does he still have to hide because of the bludge? I don't know. You tell me, Max. Do you still have to hide because of the bludge?
I mean, always and not really. No, but I mean, Freedom Tech builders are under quite serious attack.
So just like as much as everyone else.
Yeah. Maybe a tad more than average, but
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's a good spot to be in. He also says, truly a great time to be a libertarian. Bitcoin is way up. The age of consent is way down. We got legends like Max Hillebrand coming to talk to us. Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or I think it was Fagdul that said the first one, actually. And Fagdul also gives you a real question, Max Hillebrand show question. There's this German thing called Burn das Brot. What is it, and why is it so goddamn important to every German I meet? Thoughts on tokenomics and decentralized financial instruments. Great that you are back on PAZNIA shows here.
Wait, okay, read that German part again. I'm not sure I got it.
Burn das Brot.
Okay,
BERND space DAS space.
Oh, is that like
BRN.
that the Sesame Street character?
I don't fucking
I think it's that orange Sesame Street character. I don't know. Sesame Street was quite big in Germany, actually.
And wait, that's what they call one of the Sesame Street characters?
Yeah, exactly. Bernd das Brot, and basically means Bernd the bread. No idea why. I guess he looks like a French baguette.
What the fuck? Which character is that?
You know the orange one, the Bernie, the one with the
Oh, like
taller head.
Bert and Ernie or whatever.
Yeah, something
Or
like
you?
that. I don't know.
Oh, actually, he does. He literally looks like bread. I'm looking at pictures of him now. Is that a Sesame Street character? He's just some. He's some kind of puppet. I don't know if he's a Sesame Street character.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a German kid show.
Yeah.
Well, fascinating questions as always. Oh yeah, he asked you what your thoughts on tokenomics and decentralized financial instruments are. That's a pretty vague fucking question, but feel free to answer.
Well, I'm really interested in the topic. I think there's a little bit of a path dependency here. Like first we needed to have a base money in cyberspace, right? Like the digital gold, so to say, and that's Bitcoin. I think we've done a good job with that. Then we also need to be able to communicate anonymously and publicly. And that's what Nostr fixes. And if we have those two things, I can think we can build the most amazing financial contracts on top of that. I don't think that you need a blockchain for all of this DeFi stuff. I think you just need money and a coordination or communication layer. And Bitcoin and Nostr is a perfect example for this. So let me actually give you one of those examples that I think might be interesting for the audience. Because it's one of those old financial contracts that really has helped to bootstrap economies out of the ashes. And so I think it would be very interesting for the second realm as a financial contracting tool to use to bootstrap the second realm economy. And so those are bills of exchange. And a bill of exchange is basically a peer-to-peer merchant credit line, roughly speaking. So you know, one merchant has apricots, and he wants that's the farmer, and he wants to sell it, but the producer, the candy producer, doesn't have enough cash yet. So he, instead of giving him gold or Bitcoin, he gives him a paper that says in 3 months he will pay the money to whoever has this paper. And so that's a deferred payment for goods already delivered today. You know, and then that guy can produce jam or whatever, cake. So he will further the production stages of those resources. In the meantime, the farmer needs to buy fuel for the tractor or whatever. And so instead of paying the next guy with cash, he can pay the next guy with that bill of exchange. So it's a transferable contract where like relinquishment of a debt can be transferred to someone else. And this can go on for 20, 30, 100 hops until eventually the customer pays for the guy who produced the marmalade. And now he has actual cash in hand, earned from a sale of goods. And now he can turn around and pay whoever the current holder of this contract is. And so ancient contract, we've been using these for hundreds of years, and they were extremely influential, especially in the gold era. They were the primary way of how credit was created, was peer-to-peer between merchants, no banks involved. And then later, the government completely crashed that market and left us with this fiat Ponzi scheme of credit creation nowadays. But I like these bills of exchange because they are non-inflationary credit expansion. Because there's a natural limit on how much credit can be created based on how many goods are we producing. You can only create the credit if there were actual apricots produced and they exchange hands. So a very nice natural limit to the inflation of the credit supply. And
Yeah.
the big question is now, how can we do this in cyberspace? And the cool thing is, it's literally, this is one sentence, and whoever signs this one sentence has created this security, basically, like this instrument. And we can totally make digital signatures now. We can just put a Nostr event that says that, hey, Alice is going to pay Bob 0.1 Bitcoin in 3 months' time, and both Alice and Bob sign the same Nostr event. And then later, Bob can turn around and now say, actually, Charlie is the one that is going to receive the money, and both Bob and Charlie sign it. That's just a second pair of signatures. Right? And now we can keep doing this, and it's always client-side validated. So whenever someone wants to pay you in this bill of exchange, you validate who are all of these people that are involved in this bill before me, and do I trust any one of them? Because if the original person isn't going to pay you back, then you can claim the money from anyone else in this chain of people who have signed this bill. So it's an incredibly low-risk instrument because it's a one of many guarantee. Right? If you get paid with this instrument, you only have to assume that one of those 20 people is liquid and will pay you, and then you're happy to accept it, right? So it's a good that can be quite saleable. It can be used for huge sums of money, at least historically. And we don't need a blockchain for that. We literally just need signatures and a way to store messages, and that's what Nostr gives us. So that's basically bit credit, by the way, bit.cr. So if there's any second realm that has some actual industry, actual production of stuff, that's not just code or soap, but maybe something a bit more complicated. Like you need this when you have deep production stages.
Hello?
Yeah. End of rant.
Why, we're just getting started. We're talking about guns. But yeah, I think you and I see eye to eye on this. It doesn't have to be just like credit. It can be a debit system too. Like you can put gold basically in a decentralized physical store of gold by having like a network of motherfuckers that hold gold, and in exchange they collect very small amounts of it. Basically, it's like you pay rent to have your gold stored instead of gaining interest to have it gambled. It's like the opposite of a bank. And
yeah, exactly.
You could get gold backed tokens out. And yeah, this type of stuff doesn't have to be on Nostr. I mean, I do think doing stuff like this on Nostr is a cool idea, and I'm glad that folks are interested in that. Something I've been watching for years is Holochain. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No,
you ever heard of that? It's like HOLO chain, but it's very cool. It's like it's not actually, it's not a normal cryptocurrency project. Like it doesn't have one native cryptocurrency. You can use it to make cryptocurrencies, but you don't have to. But it's like and it's not there's no blockchain. It's like a chainless thing. But it kind of brings the technology down to what it really is, which is like rule enforcement, law enforcement in like a decentralized system. It doesn't have to be for a cryptocurrency. It could be for any kind of decentralized application or HAP as they call it on Holochain. But yeah, the idea is like for Holochain apps are agent centric and like kind of grassroots, and like you can split the network and it will keep working. It can work offline basically. And then they can like join back up and continue working together seamlessly. And there's lots of projects kind of like what you're talking about. Maybe not lots, but there's a few projects like what you're talking about on Holochain. Have you ever heard of value flows?
No.
Value flows is it's like a machine readable language of economic activity. It's kind of like a replacement for double entry accounting or something. It's a cool, hip, obscure, upcoming way for to make economic activity kind of programmable and understandable by like smart contracts and stuff. And like there's a lot of people playing around with credit and debt ideas on Holochain. Like someone has a project for discovering debt loops, for example, where you are your own meta creditor, you're your own meta debtor, and then debt loops can be closed or whatever. Anyway, I was kind of reminded of that, of what you were talking about. And I think that you're thinking along the right lines.
Yeah, there's so many, old contracting ideas that have worked more or less, for a long time. And we will have to experiment with these tech, like contract tech in the second realm and utilize the new cyberspace tech that we've acquired to, reimagine and re-implement these things and then see how they're useful. Like we need way more experimentation there on all types of contracts. So I'm quite bullish on that.
Yeah, me too. I got to read this other fan mail that I forgot about because this guy gave me a bunch of money. Generous donation from Bowl, again, saying, keep up the great work. Thank you, Bowl. Keep up the great donations. Even more importantly. Who is this? Oh, yeah. I think that was Shadrach. Recommended this. Someone's running a Quake 3 arena server on FIPS. Reachable only via FIPS mesh, the Noster mesh. Fuck IPs, frag by NPub. I don't know if that's an official slogan or if that's just something he said.
He's the official marketing department of FIPS, so it's all good. Now, FIPS
is that true?
Also,
I could believe that.
No. That's a good thing we don't have official things. But like I was a huge fan of Reticulum for a long time because that idea of like the idea of a transport layer agnostic mesh is just so mind blowing. It's kind of the internet all over again.
Oh, that's the future, man.
Yeah, and so I was quite happy to see another system like that because I don't know, Reticulum was always the only one that in my mind that tried to do that, and it was such a no-brainer. And there were like so many mesh networks popping up left and right, and I was like, guys, why are you not using this cool stuff? And
right.
I'm still not quite sure why the guys decided to not build on Reticulum but do their own thing.
That's the thing about, well, we could say the same thing about white noise. Like why did these guys choose to build on Nostr? It's just because guys who like Nostr are obsessed with it, dude. they want to build everything on Nostr, even if it makes no sense. But it's still cool. It's resulted in a cool ecosystem. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, exactly. And then the fact that you can run Doom over basically anything is cool. Because also a couple weeks ago, the Vector guys were running Doom inside a Marmot group. So peer-to-peer Marmot encrypted events, and it works quite well.
That's kind of cool.
I guess that's the new Hello World, does it run Doom?
Yeah, that's cool. Some other thing that happened in the chat is these guys were bringing up this weird website, and I have no fucking clue what it is, called cape.co. But it kind of seems like you guys already figured out that it was a honeypot before I even looked, because it's
good to have a smart chat.
It's like run by Palantir or something. It's like there's a guy from Palantir and the CIA there. So you guys already figured it out. Also, someone called Yoni Depth joined the chat. Just thought I'd bring that up because that made me smile. Now, speaking of honeypots, now that we've burned through all these stupid good vibes, it's time to bring up the controversy. Okay, now you're the former CEO of Wasabi. right?
Yeah, well, CEO of CK Snacks, right? So Wasabi is open source software.
Right,
There's
right,
a group
right.
of people building stuff, and CK Snacks was a company we used to
That's the
run the
main
coordinator
coordinator.
and
Yeah.
get the devs paid.
And technically, anyone could run a Wasabi coordinator, but it just wouldn't have a good anonymity set for a while, right?
Yeah, exactly. So all of the code that we did was open source, like from the very first research commit, basically. So long good history. And yeah, was always possible for people to run coordinators. Um, and the problem here is just the size of the crowd, right? Anonymity loves company, and you really need. I mean, with current implementations, at least like 50 inputs in a round for it to be kind of comfortable. And so that's like what, around 10 people on average. And you need to get them together every hour, or, could be every 5 hours or whatever. But so that's kind of the minimum amount of users that you would need to have. There's a lot of configuration ways in your coordinator to only do rounds if they fit a certain size and stuff. But yeah, so far we've seen quite a lot of kind of centralization here, that the largest coordinator gets the vast majority of revenue, of volume. And so that was the case with CK Snacks and now with Groove. Those two coordinators had, each respectively, when they were online, the vast majority of it. So that's a bit a fault in the design. But yeah, it's hard to make decentralized stuff. So I'm happy that it works really well in the centralized setting. And then yeah, future work to make it a
I
bit more
mean,
decentralized.
decentralizing Bitcoin coin join laundering solutions is definitely an effort that's underway. No one's figured that out yet. Whirlpool is
Yeah,
kind of going
actually,
that way. They're working on it, kind of slowly. Ashigaru
I mean,
people.
and the thing is, like, even join markets, it's a centralized coordination model with a decentralized marketplace
Right.
for that centralized
Yeah.
coordinator, right? But technically, there isn't really. I mean, there's Coin Shuffle, but I never really was able. Nobody was really able to explain to me properly how that works. It's so complicated.
I have
And
no
then
clue.
Joinster is trying a little bit here to have a more decentralized thing, but they, I think, sacrifice a lot on the privacy inside the group. I'm not up to date on it, but yeah, like having anonymous and decentralized coordination is hard. And kind of, I'm happy to take a centralization trade-off if it gives better privacy, especially if the centralized provider is not trusted, because then it's easy to
Right.
replicate.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, happy is a strong word, but I understand what you're saying. It would
Yeah.
be a better starting point than a decentralized thing that wasn't private. And then trying to decentralize it from there would be nice. Nice to have. Or
Yeah,
maybe
it's just that any,
right.
like, building something decentralized is already hard. Building something
Yeah.
private is already hard. Like almost impossible to do it properly, And then doing both of these is like, uh, just not impossible, but hard. Like decades of work.
So do you, and by the way, we're still taking call-ins, PAZNIA.com/call2. You want to say whatever you want to me and Max, make farting noises, whatever. But anyway, I have to ask you, because my brand is that I'm supposed to be like some sort of abrasive asshole. Okay. That's not me. It's that I'm just pretending to match up with my expectations. But I have to ask you to touch on the controversy to do with ZK Snacks or whatever the fuck the main coordinator was called. Um, talk about that. Why'd you guys act like a honeypot and work with Chainalysis and sell people out?
Well, basically because we had the information available and we couldn't find a way to make the service work without learning which addresses are using the service, and any information you know can and will be used against you. And so there were, just numerous risk management strategies where it was unwise to pretend that we didn't have this information and act accordingly. And so with this system design, if you can have a useful service where you do not learn information about your customers,
Of
then
course, that's better. Yeah,
that is
that's
perfect,
why.
right? That's why it works, right? That's why encryption works. That's why self custody works, and it's a massive hack. But if you don't have that protection, then you're playing a very different game, and you can make deadly mistakes playing that game, and so you better be careful on how exactly you do that.
So basically, you was scared, is what you telling me.
Sorry, say again.
You was scared. You were scared. You guys were scared. That's why you coughed it up. Did they know where you live or something? Were they gonna raid you?
Probably, yeah. I mean, there, these are things that don't come out of nowhere. This is stuff that slowly and gradually builds up, and signs and existing and kind of projected attacks just keep escalating. And I was a bit surprised on like the details of those types of attacks, and they're quite sophisticated, and they come on numerous different levels.
What are you getting at?
And like I mean, one, I guess, obvious one is just spooks. Like basically any conference or any more public
Oh yeah.
appearance, just weird people show up and try to get you into bad situations. That happens a lot, actually, a lot. And then all of, or not all, but many of the contributors had their for example, Google accounts confiscated, right? And you get notification about this years afterwards. Of, by the way,
Yeah.
many years ago we gave keys to the castle.
Right.
Now we're legally allowed to tell you. This types of stuff.
Well, this is why I made up my concept of counter engineering, where I'm trying to promote this culture of being like very rebellious, and just you're gonna be a pseudonymous builder, developer, creature in the counter economy, and you are just gonna have better OPSEC so that you are not so vulnerable to these attacks. And then you can just openly break the law. Then we can be so much freer in our projects. Like we can use leaks openly. We can use source code leaks openly. We can violate IP. We can do whatever we can be the ones who fucking hacked the the source code. We can do whatever we want. And that's kind of like the culture that I'm promoting, so that people don't repeat the same mistakes of Wasabi and Samurai, etc.
Yeah, and I mean that's a cultural problem, but it's also a technological problem. And to coordinate a large group of people to work on a really hard problem while still protecting the privacy of everyone involved, and still it making sense for people. Like
We just
sometimes you
put
want to
like
have people
Gidia or Codeberg or something on the darknet server, or we use fucking one of those. What's that one decentralized Git thing called? I can't remember.
Nostr Git and Git.
Well, of course you would say that, and I'm
Git
sure
workshop.
I'm sure that is a real thing. But I was thinking of something else. It's something that's like, it's almost like BitTorrent, where like how it works. But whatever. Anyway, you get the idea. I don't know. I think it's not that hard to have like pretty good pseudonymity and privacy, and like if most of these projects are just going to be volunteer volunteers are contributing, or better yet, it's monetized in some way, but it's in some decentralized, cool cryptocurrency way, then we might as well do it the right way and like be pseudonymous and have decent OPSEC so that we can just openly flaunt the law instead of being scared.
Yeah, the problem with the strategy is if your privacy gets compromised later on, and your multiple actions can be tied to you, then that's a big problem, right? And so for CK Snack specifically, like we had a quite different strategy. Like our main motto was everyone knows what the coordinator knows, right? Assume everything is recorded and published even, right? And that includes logs in the coordinator, right? We were building the architecture assuming that someone has like views in our live logs and it should still be secure, right? That someone can read all of the chat messages in the dev and read all of the GitHub issues and code and all of this, and the system should still be secure. And so it's a bit counterintuitive to do this as a cypherpunk privacy maximalist project, but I think it actually served us quite well, specifically because it made us very cautious and aware that the enemy is watching.
Well, yeah, but didn't people get busted because they used Wasabi?
I mean, none of the contributors, right? And sure, users of Wasabi might get in trouble, but I don't think that Wasabi was
users get busted.
It's
all right as
the
long as
weak
you
point there. Like usually busts happen on not just one source of evidence, but countless. And then the question is, does one lead you to the other? And yeah, maybe sometimes, but often it's just different attacks that lead to different, simultaneous revelations.
The thing is, when we're out here in the trenches fighting for freedom, it doesn't matter whether we're fighting in a really fucking gay way, like by raising awareness, which for the most part is a waste of time, or whether we're, building new tools, writing code, whether we're selling and buying things in the counter economy, or whether we're fighting in physical combat, with some sort of armed uprising. In any case, there is some risk involved, and there's no safe choice in life. And to a degree, you just have to accept that risk. Like you just have to like grow a pair, and stand up for freedom. And selling people out is unconscionable, dude. Like snitching is not cool. Bad things happen to snitches for good reason.
I mean, that's true, right? But like do you mean that in Wasabi days we were snitching, or what you're alluding to?
Well, I mean, I've gotten the impression that the coordinator was working with Chainalysis, yeah.
But the coordinator didn't have any secret information, right? All that the coordinator had was which address has registered a coin. Right? And so that information is public at the very least when the transaction gets broadcast. Right?
Well,
or if the adversary is an active participant in the realm, then even for unbroadcast, unsuccessful conjoint transactions, you can find out which inputs and outputs were registered. Right? So that's what I said earlier. We could not make this information private. This information was public, and we assumed it to be public from the very beginning of designing the spec. Right. So this wasn't a failure to live up on an assumption.
I get it. And like making something like this that like works super perfectly and well is hard, and no one's made a perfect version of Bitcoin laundering. But at what point do you just sort of admit that Whirlpool's better and it doesn't have these problems? Like shouldn't you be distancing yourself from Wasabi and like telling people not to use it? Wouldn't that be the principled thing to do?
I mean, I disagree on a technical level quite substantially. I think even Wasabi 1.0 was more private than Whirlpool, and Wasabi got substantially more private in version 1.1 and especially version 2.0. So like the comparison of what's deployed now with Wasabi 2.1 point something is just miles and miles and miles ahead of the Whirlpool system
Well,
on
let's
all of
talk
the
about
fronts
that.
actually.
Be more specific.
So like the fact of we want to use this as a real wallet, right? So you want to be able to receive and send money frequently, and so you don't want to ever reveal common input or common coin ownership, and you have to do that in Whirlpool fundamentally because CoinJoin rounds are limited to one input, one output per user, and since amounts are determined by a coordinator, you have to make a preparatory transaction where you get your denominations. And so if you do that in a single user transaction, you have a single user transaction with multiple inputs and multiple outputs that are all tied together. And so fundamentally, it's better to do that in a multi-party transaction. Right? Coin joins are better than single user transactions. And so that was Wasabi's design in 1.0, right? Batch PX0 and the coin join together, and you increase the size of the crowd, and you have more inputs on the input side that make common input ownership harder. And now with Wasabi 1.0, we had coordination protocol limitations that the coordinator did learn your input collection, right? And that is now addressed with Wabi Sabi, where every input is registered separately. So just from that aspect of no preparatory transaction is needed, and you can make payments inside the coin join, right? Like you can make a transaction where the receiver doesn't know which inputs you've had. And he doesn't know which change outputs you have, and the coordinator or anyone else doesn't even know that a payment was happening. And so this, and then the ability for it to work with larger
I think
amounts, like
Whirlpool does have that now.
the larger amounts, or
No, the payment thingy. I can't remember what they call it in Whirlpool.
Mm.
I think
Yeah,
it's
I'm not up to date with what the Ashigato team is doing, right? But yeah, like the and then especially is the problem is, right, if we start putting in arbitrary input and output values, then we need to be more careful with amount selection for these inputs and outputs, because we no longer have the trivial solution of every input and output has the same value, which is the mathematical perfect case. And so then if we have a bit more ambiguity here, then size of the coin join matters tremendously, tremendously. And so 5 input, 5 outputs is just laughably tiny. That's like what 125 interpretations. That's countable. That's not good. Right? If Wabi Sabi rounds have 400 inputs, 400 outputs. Now that's naively set to the power of 400, possible interpretations. Sure, not all of them are likely, but there's just more possible interpretations of which input paid which output in a single Wabi Sabi round than in 256-bit security, right? So alone one round of Wabi Sabi is just uncountable in its enumerations. And then you don't stop with one round, right? You make frequent rounds and you're incentivized to do so. And the entropy just becomes more than uncountable with every additional round, exponentially so.
I sincerely apologize that I do not have the education about either protocol to actually argue with you about this. And I am also tired, but maybe one day. I appreciate that though. Let me give you this angle though. How about this? Can you think of anyone using Whirlpool the right way who was busted?
Honestly, I mean, not really. But like,
it kind of seems to me like there's been a bit of a problem with folks getting busted using Wasabi. That in actual practice, Chainalysis was able to figure things out, and it wasn't necessarily the user's fault.
I mean, again, it depends a lot on the timeline that we're talking about here, right? There were a lot of problems with Wasabi 1.0, specifically that not enough was automized. But like CoinJoin was off by default, big mistake. And we required coin selection by default. This is another big mistake. But once we activated 2.0 and CoinJoin was default, like there, if you only make payments with 100% privacy level in Wasabi, I think you'll be good. You know, and if you heed the warnings of don't consolidate too much, etc. So the default use case of Wasabi has tremendously improved, so that honestly, like, the average user should be well protected. Now, sure, you know, there's edge cases, and especially if you're a whale with more than 1,000 Bitcoin, things start to be difficult. But you're like a reasonable user, I think you'll be fine without
That's an
having to worry too
important
much.
use case, though. I
Oh,
mean,
no,
those are-
absolutely, absolutely. It's just hard, right? And by the way, that's another reason why I'm not a fan of Whirlpool of having to separate these different denomination pools in different transactions. Just means that you're taking away
it's certainly clunky.
liquidity ultimately. Yeah.
It's certainly clunky. There's no perfect. I mean, like, of course, simply using Monero is a lot easier than laundering Bitcoin properly. In any case,
I'm also not so sure about that. You know, like Monero has a
Really?
lot of attack things that if you don't pay attention, I mean, they
Like what?
addressed a lot of that too. But like, for example, you know, there was this issue if you received a coin and you spent it within one or a couple blocks, then in your ring of 7 pub keys or however many it was, there was a rule that only coins that are older than whatever 100 blocks are selected as decoys. And so if you spend your money, you know, quickly after you've received it, your coin would be the only one in the ring that is younger than that threshold, and so therefore it's the spending coin.
Yeah,
You know, these types of things.
that might be different now. Also, I think
Yeah,
rings
and that's
are bigger now.
definitely fixed.
And I mean, now FM. Fuck, I always fuck it up when I don't have it written down right. FMCP plus or whatever is almost here.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is
Yeah,
going
I'm
to
very
totally
bullish on that.
Monero is pretty fucking good, if you ask me. It works. It seems to work pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah.
The real things that are the real attacks are stuff like when you have a hostile party that knows multiple sub addresses for the same wallet, like that kind of thing. I can't remember what they call that attack, but there are ways to deal with that. You just have to be aware.
I think though a lot of this really just depends. Ultimately, privacy depends on the wallet level, like the actual user-facing software.
To a degree,
Because you know, Bitcoin doesn't have privacy on the base protocol, but you can get a substantial amount of privacy by default if you use the correct wallet, like Wasabi, right? And then simultaneously, like the opposite of this is in Monero, you have quite a lot of privacy by default on the protocol. But if you then use a browser-based wallet that connects to a remote server and sends your viewing key to a server operator, and you do that on ClearNet, right? Then
nobody does that.
I mean, a lot of people use mymonero.com, right? That was a very popular wallet. No, sure. Like I know, right? But I'm making the point
now,
of
Cake Wallet's the popular thing now. And
yeah, exactly. And I'm not
good
quite sure how Cake Wallet does wallet sync. Right? I mean, they have Tor inbuilt, but I think it's opt-in. I'm not sure, or I don't know details of Monero wallet sync, to be honest.
It might be Tor might be opt-in. I can't remember. But yeah, generally speaking, Cake is pretty smartly done. Not just with the Monero stuff, Monero wallet implementation, but with other cryptocurrencies in general. They have a pretty good head on their shoulders. It seems.
Yeah, agreed. And that's also one thing of mobile Bitcoin or crypto wallets are hard as hell. Like many of the privacy improvements that we could do were simply not possible on mobile. And you know, we tried for a long time. We're working towards a mobile wallet for Wasabi, but the actual constraints would have just been such a substantial downgrade from the desktop that we couldn't ship it in good conscience. Like, it would have been so much worse, and that's just not good. So
How much do you
mobile
think
privacy is hard.
that's really just a result of blockchains being bloated and clunky?
Yeah, blockchains suck. They're a horrible design system.
I mean,
I'm
I
not a big
agree.
fan of global consensus. Like, global
Yeah, me
consensus sucks.
Yeah.
We should minimize
I
that.
mean, there's one exception, which is when your application actually is that, like what you're actually trying to do is reach a global consensus, like copy one piece of information everywhere. If that's actually what you're trying to do, that's the application. Then blockchains are probably great. But for
Yeah.
anything else, not so much.
And I'm a big fan of the architecture of client-side validation. Right? Specifically, the rather new paper of shielded client-side validation. Right? It basically uses the blockchain exclusively for a accumulator value, and the entire transaction validity is validated off-chain on the client side. And on-chain, we are only validating double spending. And only for the temporal double spending do you need to have global consensus. But for actual signature validation, amount validation, etc., this can all be done client-side and with zero knowledge on top of that.
How do I read more about this? Is this like a particular paper or project?
Yeah, so this is called shielded client-side validation. Robin Linus, Liam Egan, and
that sounds super interesting.
It's fascinating. It's quite similar to RGB. So RGB was kind of the first to really bring a client-side validation protocol out.
What the fuck is RGB?
It's a client validation protocol. So that basically means that you have a state machine where the receiver validates the successful operation of it. So specifically, let's say you want to create a token and send me 100 units of that token. Then either receiver will validate the root event where those tokens were generated, and then the block where you sent me some of them. And if I then want to forward these tokens to the next guy, I would advance that local chain that we're building here of transactions and give it to the next guy until he can verify all of these second layer transactions, so to say. But the cool advent of zero knowledge, and especially proof carrying data, we can make it so that the proof is constant size, so that it doesn't grow with every extra transaction we're doing on the second layer, and it is in zero knowledge. So I have no idea when those tokens were created or how many transactions were made in between. I just know that every state transition was valid according to the rules that I've defined. And that's a much more elegant way of having an internet money system, because you don't need global consensus for individual rules anymore.
That sounds pretty cool too, actually. You really should look into Holochain and read about it. I think you might dig it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will.
It aligns with some stuff that you are already intuitively into. So let me ask you this, since we're well into overdrive now. How did you're actually kind of a Vonuan or a guy who likes Vonu stuff, right?
Yeah. It's
not every day we get a guest like that. So like, how did you learn about that?
I remember the first episode of the Vonu pod, like many years ago.
Oh man, you were there for that?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how I stumbled upon that.
Nobody does.
But and I'm not sure if it was actually the very first, but I found it very early, and then gradually followed Rayo on his journey of rediscovering all of this, and him publishing the books and republishing and later writing his own ones. Yeah, it's a really, like, I'm quite a advocate for Vonu. Like, I tell a lot of Bitcoiners and freedom tech builders that this is a very actionable strategy that can help us a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it really strikes to the core of the issue, making oneself, invulnerable or at least less vulnerable to coercion. That really is the name of the game. That's the
Yeah.
whole thing. That's what we're trying
And
to do.
especially the mean time to harassment.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that's
that
a
is
brilliant term. Yeah.
whenever I tell someone about this, they just instantly get it. When was the last time you were stolen from? The longer, the better. It's such a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Rayo 1 was literally an autistic genius. So he had like a lot of time. He was like a nerdy guy who was like very obviously autistic, like as soon as you meet him. That's like what the accounts we have about him are. And that really explains a lot when you think about it. You can see that voice there.
Yeah.
He's got
And
just the right
anyone who works on encrypted radio mesh networks in the 70s is kind of a cool guy.
No fucking kidding, yeah. Yeah, while naked too.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. This is kind of like a disjointed because I'm going back to white noise. What do you think are the greatest strengths of white noise? What it does that is kind of special, or maybe Marmot's not necessarily white noise. And also like what are its biggest weaknesses, I guess, or what it needs to do its most work on?
Yeah. What I'm most proud on is the protocol, and the fact that there's like 8 interoperable clients now. Like, that just blows my mind, and that was the biggest learning and the biggest mistake from Wasabi. We focused way too much on the app and not enough on the protocol, and spreading it out wide and far, so to decentralize the ecosystem better. That was a big grave mistake, and so I'm making sure that that's not repeated, and so having a clear, audited, reviewed spec, still evolving. We're still finding issues, but it's at a really good point now. That's cool. And then multiple libraries. There's now people who are like taking the test vectors of our library and just vibe coding their own library in C# or Kotlin or whatever. So
you guys have test-driven development?
Yes, very much.
Good,
With basically 100% coverage. We still don't have any fuzz tests.
Is it all
and
Rust?
stuff, but yeah, the core library is Rust, and then we have a Flutter front end, and we also work on the TypeScript library.
I heard.
then-
I thought you were moving away from Flutter or something.
No, we started out in Tauri and eventually moved to Flutter just because it's a bit better for the native mobile apps.
Right. It's like that's like a cross-platform thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we'll probably use it for desktop too. So desktop and iOS and mobile will be Flutter, and then the web app will be TypeScript.
Yeah, I guess that's less gay than just making a web app and then putting the web app everywhere, that's
Yeah,
like Electron.
definitely.
I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Kind of rubs me the wrong
That's
way.
good.
I really don't like JavaScript. It really bothers me. I wish
Yeah,
we could
the thing is,
eliminate
we spoke to a lot of browser Nostr app devs, and we asked them if we give you WASM bindings of our Rust library, are you going to be happy? And some said like, yeah, all right, and others were like, no, that sucks. I would never use it. So we're like, okay, for those people, we need to have a native library, and it works. So that's another thing that I'm just insanely proud of. The fact that we have decentralized, scalable, encrypted group messaging running in the browser is like such a near impossibility thing that the fact that it actually works still blows my mind. And then especially if you can do it in a group with like 5 different apps and it just works. And you can vibe code your own thing trivially and it will just work. Like that is cool.
Well, that's the
And
beauty of MLS. And by the way, like I don't really know the history of how Marmot came about. Like, what made you guys look at MLS? Like, how did you land on that?
Yeah, so basically this started, a lot of people were talking about the lack of DMs on Noster.
Yeah.
And I was complaining about it loudly for a long time, and nobody did anything. So eventually I thought, okay, well, I'll start looking into it.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
I relate to
and
that.
and I was a big fan of the Signal protocol because we're actually using the same cryptography that was introduced in the Signal protocol in Wabi Sabi.
Yeah, I mean,
That's how
so
we
does
do our
everyone.
Ecash scheme.
Basically, like a
Yeah.
double ratchet axolotl or whatever. They basically invented the modern take on end-to-end
Yeah.
encryption. Before that, it was like fucking OTR, which was not
Yeah,
pleasant.
exactly.
And then, of course, GPG or whatever.
Yeah. And so Jeff, another great Noster hacker, he also had the same journey of like, kept complaining about the DMs and eventually decided, okay, I'll have to do it. And so he started looking into off the record, right? And how to do off the record stuff. And we eventually met at a conference where we just nerded out for hours in the hackathon space. And I was at that point basically trying to convince him that off the record is not it. It's not asynchronous and stuff
you
like
were
that.
right.
So but no, it turned well. Okay, now I guess I was right, but my proposed solution of Signal didn't work either. We hacked together a brief spec on how we could do that.
Well, it's
and
along the
proposed
right
it to the
line.
NIPS repo. Yeah, but the feedback that we got is this doesn't work for groups because the way that Signal makes groups work is by cheating and using the central server and
You're right
trusting
about
him
that,
to
yeah.
fan out messages. And we're like, yeah, that's a great trade-off for Signal, but it cannot work for Nuster because we don't trust our relays.
Yeah.
And so we needed a native multi-device and multi-user group system, especially multi-device because people are using tens of Noster clients simultaneously.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
Signal natively doesn't address that at all.
Well, this is where MLS shines, and I think that
Yeah.
MLS in particular is a strong is probably the strongest, most killer part of this whole stack you have here. Like I feel like it's gonna be used beyond Marmot. Like other people are gonna see MLS, they're gonna pick it up and use it in other protocols, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And like quote unquote the big guys, Google, Cisco, Meta, Discord, Matrix, all of these people are working with MLS now. So like
I'm not shocked.
it's like it's a big deal. It's also, and that's the biggest downside of it.
It's that same feeling I got when Axolotl came out. That like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what replaces OTR. This is that. I'm getting that feeling again with MLS.
Yeah, me too. Like I think we're over the hump of well, maybe not really, but like we're getting close. But like the problem with it is it's so insanely complex. It's by far the most complex protocol I've ever worked with in depth. And like I still don't get it fully, and that's weird. And that makes me afraid that there's some crazy backdoor in the spec somewhere.
That's a reasonable thing to be afraid of. But that's what auditors are for. Normal ass developers aren't expected to know crypto libraries. That's why you're not
true.
touch them.
And we have audits and we have security proofs. Some parts
Right.
of MLS are security proven, which is amazing.
That's cool, yeah.
And by the way, we just finished an audit of the MDK, the Marmot spec, the MDK library or white noise Rust library. That's all done now. And now they're going to look into the Flutter front end as well. But so we have an initial security audit now done and published from least authority. They did find a couple, bad things that needed fixing. And then interestingly, after they were done, we unleashed a couple AI agents to do another security audit, and they found even more issues that the humans missed. So
really? That's nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, maybe we should be doing that more often these days.
No, actually, like I'm extremely impressed with the auditing capabilities of agents if you have the right harnessing and tooling. And absolutely run this on all of your repos as much as you have tokens for. Like it's worth it. We find critical shit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, AI is getting better faster than I thought it was going to. And yeah, it almost feels like auditing is easier than other stuff. Like it's easier than getting it to develop, like getting it to write code on its own. Auditing is a lot easier. It's a lot easier to point out other people's mistakes than to actually do anything yourself. That's why I tend to stick to that.
Yeah. And especially considering how insanely expensive human auditors are.
Oh yeah.
It's like if you can get it for
Not even
$200 a
close.
month, count yourself lucky.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Now, is there any other cool stuff you want to talk about on the show? The bar is very low here. It can be anything. The interview mostly devolves here into something unlistenable. Jokes about child prostitutes, scientific racism, discussions of the occult and fringe science, snake oil, health treatments. Now, you're a libertarian, so you're probably going to want to say nigger or argue against the age of consent. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of child labor. I think it's quite essential.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's way better than going to school.
Yeah. Yep.
Get a resume instead.
Yeah. I don't know what haven't we yet talked about? Zap Store is an interesting thing as well. I'm insanely bullish on that because like publishing software is becoming exceedingly difficult to do privately and censorship resistant. Like, and we're gonna have like operating system age verification and this type of stuff. It's already rolled out. It's not even a thing of the past. Like it's here in many jurisdictions. So I mean, obviously Graphene OS, right? Get a non-spying operating system. That's step one. But then how are you going to get your apps? And Zap Store just surprises me so much because it's a direct developer to user marketplace where the developer just signs a text file saying, this is my app, this is what it does, here is the file, like the release, the APK, here's the hash of it. And all of that is signed. And so you can fully verify signatures automatically. And then because it uses Nostr, it has the web of trust. And this is the same pub key that is signing the shit posts is now also signing APKs. And that makes it way more secure, and it also leads for you to be able to discover new applications. Like I discover almost daily new cool applications on Zap Store just by browsing through the latest releases. And so I can very much encourage you guys, if you want some more freedom tech in your life, get Zap Store and just keep checking it out and see what new things are published. And I guarantee you will find amazing apps that you didn't consider before.
I do kind of think Zap Store is like a cool idea. I do think maybe there could be some sort of way of improving on it. Like, do you know App Verifier and like a Crescent stuff?
Yeah.
Fuck. You know how like in Obtainium, do you ever use Obtainium?
Yeah. As OG Obtainium user, but switched to Zap Store now full time actually.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, well, like the way that you can you can verify something in fucking App Verifier on Obtainium. It's kind of awkward, but and of course nothing's ever there because there's like fucking 5 things on App Verifier's database. But in theory, something that I like that idea seems good to me. Like maybe a distributed store of keys or something like known good keys for things. It's like a distributed database, something like that. Could be.
Yeah. So the default APK system has a signature system in it, and so you have when you first time install an application, you trust that pub key, and then you can only make updates if it's signed by that same pub key.
Well,
so your update chain is secure. Right?
Even on the Android level, that's enforced to a degree.
Yeah, exactly.
But the concern is that first time
exactly
you're trusting.
And that's where Zap Store comes in, right? Like for example, you can go to Zap Store and you will find I have published an app pack which is signed with my Nostr private key, right? Which you can be quite sure is mine. And then I have like, I don't know, 20 different privacy apps that I recommend. And so now you will see that, hey, this guy whom I've met at the conference and scanned his QR code. So I did a PGP paper handshake, like key signing party, right? This is the real guy. And now you know that the APK was approved by him. And you can do that for all of your friends. And it's not implemented, but what would be cool if I only install an APK if it was signed by at least 5 of my friends. And this way, and you sign your APKs when you install them. And so
Yeah.
you know that at least I have the same apps as my friends. Now maybe we're all being attacked, but it's at least not a selective
Yeah,
attack.
that's not too likely. Yeah. I think that you're onto something there. And that kind of is where my mind was at. Like we've talked about this in the chats when it comes to like name what's the word I'm looking for? Name, not necessarily domain name, but just anything where you're associating human readable names with machine readable stuff. Name databases. I had a little conversation in the chats about how like I don't necessarily think that needs to be monetized, and that names can be what they've always been, which is like just like a casual thing. You can name something or somebody anything, right? And it doesn't even have to be unique necessarily, but like the knowing that you have something that's not fraudulent, that you have an association that's not fraudulent, is something that comes from reputation, verifying it with your friends, corroboration, which is something that I think we can handle automatically. I guess that's kind of like gossip, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's cool. Anything you want to plug before the show's over? We've done as much overdrive as we can.
Well, keep building, guys.
You wanna
Definitely
plug
check
us?
out Muster. Yeah, keep being a PAZNIan. And it's important that we keep pushing, and also building the general stuff. It's cool to nerd out about the tech and things, and
Yeah.
that's mainly what I focus on. But people need to build the other stuff too.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yeah, we
I'm
definitely don't
kind
get
of like
stuck on tech around here.
I'm kind of done with soaps and beef jerky.
Oh,
Like
me too.
if that's like the level of productive output that we can muster, then we're kind of fucked. So I'm really trying to push for the next couple of years to get
Yeah, we need guns,
actual deep
drones,
production stages.
cars, ammunition, food,
Yeah.
like more than the beef jerky, but like, cost-effective food that we can actually live on. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
We need to crush all our enemies, see them driven before us, and hear the lamentation of the women.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
But when you love your work, it doesn't. The hours just fly by.
Exactly.
Thank you for tolerating me, Max.
No, this was fun. I appreciate it.
This
was a good one.
I hope that you liked it. Where can people like follow your shit? What's White Noise's website and stuff?
Yeah, whitenoise.chat. And my personal one is towardsliberty.com. You'll find all my Noster notes there. I only post on Noster these days. Fuck the other shit. And yeah, just write me on White Noise. You'll find me easily, and play around with it and hope it works. It's working like 60% of the time every time now. So we're still in that phase. But give us a couple more releases and it should actually work.
I think people should keep an eye on White Noise and Marmot ecosystem in general.
Yeah.
You guys can go to PAZNIA.com/simplex to see the various chats for PAZNIA. If you have any kiddies who are going to be military age, like, let's say males between the age of 15 and 25, anywhere from now to like 10 years from now, then show them our TikTok at PAZNIA Radio. I think we're going to start streaming on TikTok soon. We need those military age males, please, for reasons. I am also a privacy and security expert. Fucking go to vonupodcast.com/CD, get me on session, or SimpleX, give me money in exchange for helping you. And on PAZNIA.com/SimpleX, remember to give special attention to the Anti-National Security Agency chat, which will soon be divided into a few chats, a few different chats, I hope. Because, we're trying to incubate cool stuff like monetizing reticulum and shit like that. That needs to be done. On the next show, what am I going to do for Down to Earth Tip and building the second realm? I have no fucking clue. Maybe I'll finally do the fucking, what was I going to call it? A fear-mongering warning about the fucking imminent AI dystopia and the urgent need for insurrectionary agorism. But also hopefully John Robb, the author of Brave New War, will be here next week. It's not confirmed, but he might be the guest next week. And he's a guy who predicted drones and drone warfare and maybe AI stuff a long time ago. So that'd be cool. I will leave you with a poem. Catullus 16 by Gaius Valerius Catullus. I will butt fuck you and face fuck you. Bottom Aurelius and Catamite Furious, you who think, because my poems are sensitive, that I have no shame, for it's proper for a devoted poet to be moral himself, but in no way is it necessary for his poems. In point of fact, these have wit and charm, if they are sensitive and a little shameless, and can arouse an itch, and I don't mean in boys, but in those hairy old men who can't get it up. Because you've read my countless kisses, you think less of me as a man? I will butt fuck you and face fuck you. Self-Liberation Saturday will keep going for some hours still. It's shaping up to be a day of reruns of pretty funny stuff you may not have heard before. There'll be sundry PRN deprogramming, followed by PAZNIA Folklore Story Time, which will have all the latest AI-generated stories about General Willy 2, then capping off with another rerun of the hilarious Second Realm speed dating. Now that's what I'm talking about. Even I might listen to this one. So don't touch this dial, boss. Stay tuned and stay frosty.